What is going on, everybody? We're going to do something a little bit different. So, I posted something earlier this morning, a little controversial, blew up, and enough people reached out with their opinions, varying opinions, everything changed, nothing changes, change it, don't change it, that we're just going to do a live. We're going to do a podcast episode and have anyone who wants to join come on and tell us why we should or shouldn't make changes in the direction of what we were discussing earlier. So, what we're going to do is, I'm going to pin this comment. Boom, there we go. Anyone and everyone can jump on the live. If you have an opinion, let's hear it. So, surprise, surprise, co-host. And here he is. Should be joining. Hey, there he is.
What's up, dude?
What's up, dude? Thank
Not
you
much.
for
How are you?
joining me.
No problem at all.
So I really, really wanted to do this with you because, one, you're one of the not only best shooters in the country, but you're one of the best carry optic shooters in the country. I would say, honestly, the globe, right? And when I posted, should we make these changes being allow single action only in carry optics, power factor, change power factor, give them their own division, whatever, you immediately were like, no, I'm opposed, right? So I want that here. So when people come on, it's not just them versus me. I have one opinion, they have another. There's two people with varying opinions in vastly different directions that they can talk to. So welcome.
No problem. Happy to be here.
So we're going to just, like I said, if anyone wants to jump on, just send a request to be on the live and I'll add you. You can jump on, talk to us, give us your opinion, but let's discuss what we're discussing. So currently, where I was coming from is if you want to shoot a 2011 or a single action only CZ or Tanfoglio or what have you, in USPSA, it has to be an open gun or a limited gun in 40, running major power factor to be competitive. To be competitive with no disadvantage. Not saying you can't be competitive with minor, because you can. Obviously, we've seen people do it. Look at Nils. He's kicked ass in 40 with a minor gun. But to be competitive with no disadvantage, you kind of have to run that the way it is. And his Wi-Fi is spotty. We're gonna have to be saved again. There we go. Last time we did a live, me and Mason, I think, I believe his wife saved the day and let him use her phone, I think. Pretty sure that was that live. But, well, he'll jump in when he can. But anyway, to be competitive in those divisions, or to be competitive with the 2011 in USPSA,
Sorry about that. I was trying to monkey around reading the comments, and then I accidentally swiped out of it.
You're good, dude. But anyway, to be competitive with a 2011 in USPSA, you have to run major power factor and either run open or limited. So you either have to buy an open gun and run possibly pressures that are susceptible to failure, or run limited in 40 cal, which not a lot of people, the only reason people have a 40 cal 2011 most of the time is for limited, right?
Or any gun. 40
or
cal.
any gun in 40 cal, right?
Yeah.
So, and the most sold gun for the 2011 platform, and if you're talking single action only CZs and Tanfoglios, is 9mm with most of the time, not all the time, optics ready, right? So why isn't there a place for them was kind of my question. That's what started this whole thing. And I started it with Matt Hopkins because I was talking to Matt about it, and he was like, that's dumb, nobody wants it. And I was like, well, let's put a poll out to see if people do want it, right? So then the poll went wild. I think there's been over 400 and some odd people vote, and we're like literally dead split down the middle. It's 50-50. Let me see if I can pull it up because I have Instagram on my work phone. Let's see here. Where are we at with this poll? We are 49% yes, 51% no. So it's, and that's varied throughout the day because sometimes I check it and it's like 51.49 and I'm like, fuck yeah. And then I check it again, it's 49.51. I'm like, shit. And then it's 50.50 and it just keeps going back and forth. It hasn't swung one way or the other drastically, right?
Right.
So obviously there's people who want it. Obviously there's people who don't want it. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to discuss that. And then I put up another poll to discuss some other things we'll get to later. But what are your thoughts on changing carry optics in any way? Do you think we should? Do you think it's dumb? Or do you think it should have its own, let's say, limited optics where they're allowed, but it's not messing with carry optics?
First of all, I'm not opposed to the addition of any division if there's people there to support the division and it's going to be competitive, right? And with that obviously comes neutralizing divisions that are no longer participated in essentially at all. So I'm not fundamentally against any change if it's going to be, for, the benefit of what people want to do. I just see the immediate history of what we've done the last time we've had a really successful division and we started messing with it, and we see how it's doing now, right? And for the uninitiated, I'm of course talking about production. Back in 2015 or 16, it was the most popular division or close, right? It held, arguably the most talent at any given time, almost anywhere you went in the country, and now it's barely participated in. So I'm very reluctant to mess around with divisions unless there's a really clear and obvious reason to do it that I think makes sense, or that, a general consensus of people makes sense. I don't think I'm speaking English. Thinks makes sense. But I just don't really see the impetus to do it as far as what the benefit is. There's certainly people that have those guns, and I just have a hard time believing that the market of people that, first of all, even have a 9mm double stack 1911 and want to shoot USPSA but can't. I can't imagine getting another gun is going to prohibit them from becoming involved. Because if you're willing to spend at a minimum $2,000 once, you'll probably spend less a second time, or spend more to get a gun that you're able to shoot open with. And as far as how it directly affects carry optics, obviously I'm more than qualified to say the gun does not make everything as far as, what allows you to be competitive in a division.
Did you go back to back with a SIG and limited?
Yeah, you can do it. Ask me how I know, right? So at the end of the day, though, there are features, right, that people find desirable. I don't think anyone can argue that a steel frame 50-ounce gun is a desirable feature. You can't argue that a single action trigger is a desirable feature. You can't argue that 24+1 or maybe even 25+1 instead of at the best 23 is a desirable feature. And that would instantly reshape what guns are competitive or what guns are popular within carry optics. And that is a huge fundamental change to, what that division is about. My personal opinion on the matter is I would like to see both production and carry optics go way more towards, what production used to be. Like roll them both either up to 15 or down to 15 as the case may be. And then, put the toothpaste back in the tube as far as what modifications are allowed on those guns. And if there is, the participation to support having a division, for that market you're describing, then I don't really care if you add that, as long as, you consolidate, divisions based on the ones that are not really participated in anymore.
Yeah, when I first started shooting in like middle of 2018, production was still kind of popular. My first match was in production. That's what I shot, right? Carry optics, I think, was just starting somewhere in there. Maybe it had been around for a little bit, but
I believe in 2016, either 2015 or 16 was the first couple of years.
Yeah, but it hadn't totally taken off like wildfire. I don't remember it being like crazy, right? I remember Max obviously was dominating at the time, and it was a super desirable division. I shot carry optics. I went production, carry optics, limited. Kind of a weird way to go, but again, I was like, oh, those 2011s are cool. Bought one and was like, oh, this is nice. But I still shot carry optics back and forth. But yeah, I mean, it's changed so much now. Everybody calls it poor man's open. I got so many comments. I mean, I got DM after DM when I posted this of, don't fuck with it. It's the entry level open. It's entry level open. It's poor man's open. I'm like, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be production optics, basically, but
Right.
it's changed so much.
And that's I think the only salient argument towards doing something like what you're suggesting is right now carry optics occupies such a cool space because of the fact that getting major guns in open or limited is kind of cost prohibitive and obtuse to do. And you can have most of the advantages as far as at least the capacity of the sights go in a carry optics gun. So it occupies a space that allows people to shoot a pistol division fairly racily, if you will. And it's becoming a really, really wide basket that's sort of turned itself into a crucible where you look at like this year's nationals, and it'll probably be 2.5 full super squads worth of people that are going to be shooting carry optics at nationals.
Oh yeah.
So that's interesting, and to me that's a good thing to consolidate as many shooters as possible into a given division, because to me participation at every level is the most important thing to the sport. But I don't. It just seems like we're able to do that without monkeying around with how the rules are structured. So I would care not to.
Yeah, I totally get that. The only reason I see it now viable, and I didn't take this stance until it got to where it's at now, where, dude, I've shot some really nice SIGs and I've shot some crazy nice CZs where I'm like, dude, this is no longer an $800 to $900 production gun. This is a 2, 3, sometimes with those CZs even closer to $4,000 race gun, and they're heavy. I mean, a dude sent me a picture of his CZ of a 59 or 50 some odd ounces, and I'm like, holy shit, that's way heavier than my open gun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to the point now where it's like, what there, and here's where I say it doesn't matter, because if you look at, I went back and looked at all the area matches and a couple of the other bigger matches. If you take, say, Master or A or B or C or whatever division, GM, and you look at the open overall winner and the carry optics overall winner, you compare them, you put the open to minor, on average it was 1 to 4% different. Being open has a slight advantage, a 1 to 4% advantage, but you take away the comp, you take away the frame mounted dot, and you take away the 29 to 30 round capacity, and there's the difference right there, right? It becomes super leveled out, and you're talking about $6,000 to $8,000 gun versus a $500 to $2,000 gun, and the difference is so comparable when you drop it to minor. 1 to 4% is not that much. I mean, it is in the grand scheme of things, but
it's a shitload, really. But yeah,
it's a shitload. But if you're talking about how much more that gun costs, right? Take away the comp, take away the frame mounted dot, take away the capacity, and take away the magwell. What's the difference? I think it pulls that in extremely tight. And as well as I do, you've kicked some serious ass with a gun that everyone is like, oh, it's not a 2011. It's the shooter in the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and I think that is important to bear in mind. But at the end of the day, what people are able to do with guns that aren't considered ideal shouldn't really shade the decision making so much as far as how we structure the divisions, because no one is under any disillusion that like limited minor is competitive, and Nils still almost won limited nationals shooting minor, right? There's no case to be made that shooting minor is advantageous, really, not in our sport anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's really necessarily that much of a factor. At least to me, that's not that much of a factor. The question rapidly becomes, what divisions are successful and should we not mess with? And how can we reconcile the differences so that they're different in a meaningful way? And through that, how are you going to consolidate talent? Like, for sure, I think you and I both pretty much agree. It would be sensible to drop major power factor to a point that is easier for people with the guns that they're generally using to do it safely, right? So whatever number you call that, it should be dropped at least a little bit.
150 power factor is perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would be totally reasonable. And it seems like open is pretty much there to stay. It seems like if you want to draw just a goalpost at the other end of the spectrum, production is a good one to start with, where it's minors, 10 rounds, the gun has to essentially come out of a box. And if we only have basically one division in the middle, I mean, what are we going to call it? Put 1 or 2 divisions in between. What are they? it's going to be for sure carry optics, another gun that people can ostensibly pull out of a box and use. And then something maybe racier than that. It seems like limited will be replaced at some point. It's just I'm reluctant to look at theoretically carry optics, single action optics, and open and think that they're different in a meaningful way, and that you're not just going to disperse talent rather than just to enable a few people to shoot a different division. To me, I don't see the difference between hardly just see a difference between theoretically single action optics with 2011s or carry optics with the standards we see now. I don't see so much of a difference between that hypothetical and the IPSC production optics rules, which on paper is bisected into light and heavy guns, where it's essentially plastic frame and steel frame guns, and it's the carry optics light, as it were, is not really observed at all by actual shooters. Like nobody actually does that, and it will most likely be deleted during the next General Assembly.
Yeah. So that's where maybe we go production optics, limited optics.
Yeah, I guess you could do that.
And then if you drop power factor, like not everyone, most people want, to a reasonable amount, you can make 150 power factor with plus P ammo. You're not going to make it with off the shelf 9, but plus P ammo or some hand loaded ammo that is going to be under pressure, but still cycle out of a non-compensated single action, really double act. Any gun, any 9mm can cycle plus P ammo without doing significant damage to the gun. So now if most gun sales are 9mm. We can all agree on that, right? So most people coming into the sport probably already own a 9, right? And most of them are going to have either a Glock or a SIG or an STI or something like that that's going to have an optics plate. And then now they have the option, okay, they can take that gun, they can shoot production, they can shoot production optics, they can shoot limited optics, 4 divisions with the same gun, and either make minor power factor or major power factor.
Yeah, I guess that sort of makes sense.
Or just get rid of power factor altogether and do those same divisions. And now you've got low cap irons and optics and high cap irons and optics, all minor power factor, and go from there. And then open, they're going to run the same guns with minor power factor and have just as much fun. I mean, in reality.
Yeah. My biggest issue with that is, of course, just I see such incremental differences between those things. Like, it already is weird to me that as Matt pointed out a second ago there, like the CZ A01 LD is like totally Gucci in carry optics, and then a 2011 is not. And it's like, to me, the way forward, you're at a split in the road there where you need to like rectify that obvious logical mess. And you can either, let more guns in, so you're not just, basically drawing an arbitrary line that's unfairly punishing some guns, or you can go the other way and just undo the 60-ounce weight limit. And to me, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. I just, there's a lot of guns in the space that don't really fit into the box that is drawn right now. Right.
Well, how many are there?
Well, last year, 2021, I believe 40,000 and some change, give or take a few 2011s were sold in the US, right? Most people buying a 2011 are either 1, rich and want a 2011, or 2, like the platform, want to carry it or use it out the range with their buddies, having fun. A lot of, STI's basically running the military law enforcement game. Those guys like to get out and shoot some stuff, get better for their work. And then you have single action CZs, Tanfoglios that people love to shoot. Honestly, if we're getting rid of single stack and we're getting rid of limited 10, which I think we should, single stack maybe not. A lot of people, people still love single stack, whatever. But if you do get rid of it, right, just consolidate the divisions, low cap irons, low cap optics. Now you run your 1911 10 round mag 9mm, and you can run it in production, right? You have your limited gun, you want to run it 10. Well, you can't run that in production low cap because it's production, right? But I don't know. There's ways around it. I just think the way it currently sits, I don't see it staying that way for long and being viable.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think the other part of this discussion is someone a minute ago mentioned something about Prod 15. And everybody wants to talk about that and what a great solution it is to basically, speed up production in terms of the viable strategy when you're shooting it. But the core of the issue is that stage design has really kind of gotten out of hand as far as quality control goes. And you notice it a lot more, like particularly when it comes to target density and hit factors being way overinflated. You notice it more when you're, forced into shooting 8 or 9 rounds time after time, or God forbid, even doing a standing reload to make the stage happen because you're shooting low cap, because it slaps you directly in the face. But you should still notice that if you're shooting a gun with 20 or 29 rounds in it, because standing in one place and hosing down, 6 or 7 targets is not very interesting with a high cap gun either. It's just not an insult when you're then forced to do a standing reload.
Yeah.
And so the issue is not really how many rounds you have in the gun there. It's that the stage is requiring you to do something that's disinteresting or, not ideal for really any division. It's just directly straight up insulting to low cap shooters. And that's, to me, the part that really needs to be addressed. And you can do it culturally by sitting around here and complaining about it. But there's a lot more you could do too by instating actual policy, or really, turning the NRY program around to focus a little bit more specifically on, not just strictly complying with the rules and ensuring safety, but helping people understand what the skills test is. Understand that USPSA stages are designed to test skills. So if you're designing a stage without that in mind in any way, then that's probably a really big problem.
Yeah, when I was getting ready for limited 10 nats, I shot limited 10 for like a month and some change, local matches, hit a couple local matches around here, did my normal practices. Well, I leave stages up when I practice, and shooting my own stages that I set up for practice with open, I was like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I was like, what is
fun.
going on? And then shooting some of these local matches, I'm like, cool. So I got a standing reload here and another one over here in a 32 round stage. That's fucking stupid, right? So, I mean, Mason Lane for Prez. Come on, man. Just do it.
I'm wildly underqualified for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I had someone I've had a lot of people hit me up like, dude, run for area director. Fuck that. Yeah, no way.
Thanks.
There's not, listen, you don't want me as your area director. You just don't. It'd be a shit show. But no,
yeah,
I mean,
no, I completely feel that. And that's an issue that happens all the time. It's like it's happens from the top all the way down, where we see not so much anymore. The last few years worth of nationals have been really good about being actually properly round balanced by section and in overall composition. But especially, the culture takes a long time to sort of drizzle down. And, I think generally speaking, more and more people, at least in the East Coast and sort of in the Area 8 region, have been pushing more and more towards doing IPSC round count match composition with a 3-2-1 rule. And that's a decent solution, because generally speaking, if you use less rounds on a stage, the hit factor will be lower. So you get good round balance. And you also tend to get better factor balance, which is a good thing in general too, because it weights the actual scoring challenge very differently. And that's a good way to, usually a pretty good general quality control metric to make sure you're not just straight up insulting low cap shooters. But that's not a one size fits all solution either. There's a lot more nuance to it than that, I feel.
Oh, 100%. Kenny Platt, ladies and gentlemen.
What up? Hey, I'm driving. Approach.
You're driving?
Well, I'm sure
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, you're the one that asked me to go
cares.
All part.
Yeah, nobody cares. So people, if you're on this live, if you request to join, then join. But if not, I'm just going to pick you out of a crowd and add you without your knowledge while you're driving, just to add some other flavor to this. Because me and Mason are both making great points, but we want to hear what you guys think. So, Kenny, what do you think?
I think that there's way too many iron sight divisions. There's 5 iron sight divisions out of 8, and they only are currently sitting at about 40% of activity, and I think that's going to continue to decline. And the only thing that can pump that number up, if anybody cares to do so, would be to make prod high cap. And I don't think 15 rounds is enough. I think prod needs to go either. My favorite idea is the aftermarket would have to catch up to it a little bit, but to literally just delete the line that says 10 rounds only in the magazine, which basically then de facto says however many rounds you can shove in the magazine that fits in the gun, that fits in the box, is good to go. So there are less things to check. You don't have to count rounds up to 15. You don't have to have a mag gauge or have a different mag gauge. You already have people that have guns that fit in the box. The aftermarket will support little +2 or +3 round base pads. All production guns that already are legal right now will continue to be legal. And all you would have to do is just load your magazines full. Because my argument is I think it's insane that we still have the most popular guns in America, which are striker fire or double action, single action hammer fire, iron sighted 9mm handguns that are high cap, don't have a place to be competitive without either downloading them or adding an optic to them. There is nowhere to take the most popular gun by whatever brand. They're all their most popular guns other than their concealed carry guns are the same guns. They may be optics available, they may be optics ready, but they likely don't come with optics. And still they're, in the general population, most people have iron sights on their handguns. And the only way to invite people out and have them be competitive is to either have them have 6 or 7 magazines and do a shitload of reloads on stages that are no longer conducive or fun to do so, or tell them to load up their magazines or buy base pads and be non-competitive. Well, non-competitive is a little bit of a stretch, but I would say be
at a disadvantage.
At a disadvantage. Non-competitive is a stretch, but at a disadvantage and shoot limited minor. And yeah, my argument is the only way to save irons in general is high cap prod.
The only people that enjoy limited minor are Mason Lane and Nils Jonasson.
I just shot limited minor 2 days ago. It was super fun, but it totally cost me in the overall. I wouldn't do it at a major match. I do it for fun at home. And what's funny is I actually, at local matches now, I bring my prod gun and I bring all my magazines and I bring my 3 or 4 big sticks. And if the stages suck really bad for prod, I just change my registration to limited minor and shoot that way so I can still have fun. And the stages were a total nightmare for prod at this particular local match.
So
I just don't want to do it.
So what you're saying is production should move away from 10 rounds. So you're saying, say, production optics, production iron, show up with the gun you got, load the magazines all the way up, have fun. But then if you've got open and limited, or you could do limited irons and optics where you could have steel frame, whatever gun.
Yeah, I don't care so much about the whole optics 2011 thing, because I think there are a lot of places for 2011s to play, but there isn't a place for a 9mm slide ride optic 2011 to be competitive right now.
Well, there's only two places for them to play, and none of the 95% of the 2011s on the market are at the same disadvantage that you are claiming production guns are at. They're 9mm guns.
I think this is starting to highlight a fundamental sort of disagreement about how it is you're structuring divisions, though.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, are you trying to look at the market of gun owners in general and try to design divisions to basically optimize the guns that they have? Or are you trying to look at what different skill sets are accented by different divisions and design divisions around that?
See, this is why we have you, Mason.
Well, to me, it makes more sense to look at the skills that are inherent to, say, open versus limited versus production, and, sort of exploit the differences between all those as far as the skills required. And if anything, optimize divisions to make those more different and more diverse. And that's going to shoehorn people into divisions differently that way. I'm not really that interested in finding a division so that people can go shoot their 365 or their Springfield Hellcat in a match just because lots of people own them. Like, to me, that's not really the question.
So what would you do, if anything, with production?
I don't know if you just asked me a question. I blacked out for a second there.
Sorry. Yeah, I did. What would you do, if anything, to production? I guess there's two questions. One, do you see the decline in numbers of production as a problem? Because you may say, I don't think it's a
Yes.
problem. It's like, well, okay. Then two, what would be your solution?
Fixed stage design. And we were talking about this just a minute ago. It's stages that are bad no matter how many rounds you have in a gun. It's goes from bad to insulting when you're forced to stand and do a reload to complete a stage. So to me, that's the real issue.
I guess
You could help the issue, I guess, you can make it less insulting by giving those people an extra 5 rounds in their gun. But that's not really fixing the problem. That's just accepting the fact that stages are not very good. So
yeah. See, I accept.
In an ideal world, if I were to do it over from scratch, I would put prod and CO at 15 rounds because I think that accents a really interesting difference between irons and optics. And I would reel it in as far as what modifications are allowed to both those guns. But that to me, that's the issue, is the fact that stages are insulting if you're shooting low cab.
I just see that as a problem that can't be fixed. So me, and I don't mean to insult you in any way. I see that as a similar argument as saying that the solution to war is eliminating evil from existence. Like, that is just not a possibility. So I don't believe that the solution to fixing production is eliminating bad stage design. I literally just do not think that is possible. With the setup of USPSA being what it is, with match directors and local clubs and being, based on volunteerism. It's not that wouldn't work. It would work. I just see it as impossible.
I think it would be a much more accurate simile to say, poverty exists because of ignorance, and you can educate ignorance. And in this case, educating a much smaller population than just, a state or a continent, it's a much easier solution than that, because you already have a captive audience of people that want to be staff. And all you would have to do is force them to take training that educates them in order to get their annual recertification, and you would be jamming it down their throat. Honestly, it would be way easier than eliminating evil or even educating an ignorant nation or feeding starving people. It's a lot simpler than that to me.
So what about changing the rule of how many targets are allowed to be in view in one position? What about going to 6 rounds?
That would be perfect. And the difference that's between IPSC and USPSA, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, is it says you cannot require more than X number of rounds from a position in USPSA, compared to you cannot allow more than that same number of rounds in IPSC, which is a huge difference, because it makes it so that as long as you can go and see stuff other places, you can shoot as many rounds as you want from one position, which is dumb.
That's a change that could possibly work. But do you like the idea of, I like the idea of where it is right now with stage design. Not that I think that people should choose to build stages where really the only way that makes any sense to shoot it is to stand flat-footed and shoot 16 rounds. Like, that's dumb. But I like giving people the option of, hey, you can see these targets from over here, you can see these targets from over here, or you can see them from right here. And depending on your round count and depending on your division, it's the stages that really get you are, at least when you're shooting production, are the times when it's like, well, technically you can see those 4 targets from 10 yards further back in the fault line, but there is no reason other than your round count that anyone would ever shoot them from there. It's like, then fuck me, right? Like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I guess to sort of undermine my own point, I look at like my buddy Phil shoots single stack major every year. He shoots the nationals every single year. And I see like the cattywampus plans that he has to do, like, hunting, like picking targets out of the back of the bay, like in every position, just to make it so he doesn't run out of ammo. And I think it would be a tough sell to fix stage design to the point that you could make things optimal for someone with 8 rounds in the gun. I think that's probably getting towards a little bit, just biasing the average factor a little bit too low. And I think 10 rounds, though, is a pretty easy standard to draw, where it's like, hey, we probably shouldn't be allowing people to consistently shoot more than 9 rounds from a single position. Like, that's just not sensible to me. And I think if you took that one rule and said, hey, you're not allowed to shoot more than to see more than 6 or 8 rounds from a given position. That would do a lot to balance out that issue, and that would take a lot of retraining and retooling from match designers that are not used to that. But
I think they'd figure it out really, really fast,
that needs to be rectified. It's not how many rounds people are attacking the stage with. It's the fact that the stage is badly calibrated.
I think that could be super easily fixed. You change the rule, and they're going to figure it out. They'll figure it out. It's not rocket surgery. Change the fucking rule, and all the stage designers and all the match directors will figure it out. It may take them a week or two, but guess what? They're going to figure it out. A local match might suck for a couple weeks, but guess what? He's going to figure it out. He's gonna know the proper way. He's going to ask around. Plus, USPSA could put out some videos. Hey, when you're looking at setting up stages, this is how you need to do it. This is what you need to look for. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. I mean, other shooters like you guys are super intelligent for the most part. Y'all could put out some videos. Hey, man, when you're setting up a stage, this is what to look for. I'm not saying you can't 3 feet from this position set another position, but guess what? Now you have room to reload. Now you can blend those positions while doing a reload. The stages don't have to be stop, shoot 8 rounds, move 10 feet, stop, shoot 8 rounds. You can shoot certain rounds while being able to move into that next position to be able to view the next area of the next array of targets, right? There's ways to properly design a stage. I've been to matches where it's just garbage water in stages because the way they set it up would suck hard for production guys. And guess what? When you're shooting limited, it's just as shitty for the most part because the stages aren't that interesting.
Yeah.
Right? I liked having to blend positions, having to test my skills and make the stage work. I like to look at it and it'd be a puzzle. I don't like to look at it and go, well, I could shoot all 32 of these in 8.5 seconds because I only have to move 11 feet.
Right. Yeah. And that's continuing down the stage design rabbit hole. I think that's one of the misconceptions I think people have around what makes stages good is if you ask most people, and by most, I mean, at least from my experience, what most people will say when you ask them what makes a stage good, they'll tell you, I like a stage with some options. It's like, well, what does that even mean? Because I can count pretty much on one hand the amount of times in the last 2 years that I've seen a stage where there was 2 fundamentally different ways to attack it that were both, approximately equal in outcome. Like that almost never happens. And
very rare.
Usually, even if it is, it's like, oh, I'm going to take, a swinging target here or static from here or a close target from here, but, with more running or farther from over there. It's usually not really a meaningful difference as far as the options go. And to me, the ability to really choose your own path is less important than having one option that's really good and stipulating essentially what the procedure is through target placement and course construction over the course of the whole match so that you have, even if it's a 20-stage match, there's only one way to do every stage, but there's 20 very different and interesting challenges. That's just as good as having quote-unquote options to me. To me, the strategization is not that important to me, honestly.
It is hard to design a stage with multiple good options. It's easy to design a stage where you can see targets from all over the place, but that is not necessarily designing a stage with more than one reasonably smart way to shoot it. That's funny. That's one of the things that when I do stage designs just for our local matches, which is rare anymore. I used to do them more often. I tried so hard to come up with stages that I genuinely did not know the way that I would shoot it. And it was really challenging to design stages that I thought would have more than one way that made any sense to shoot it.
Right.
Because most of the time you get it on the ground and you're like, yeah, never mind. Everyone's going to go over here. It's just the only way that makes any fucking sense.
But even stages that are like really well designed, like I think of, sort of dating myself or whatever, but if you think of like the last nationals, the last race gun nationals that was in Alabama, there was two stages in the first section where there was like, you could do 2 completely different plans. And as far as how you were going to visualize it, it would 100% change what you're going to do. But the only actual difference was essentially which positions you chose to take in which order. So it's like, basically, I'm going to do this clockwise or counterclockwise. And nothing about the actual challenge changes. It's just the order that you do all the crap in. And like 99% of the time, that's what the quote unquote option is. Yeah, and like you're saying, to get a stage that's truly has multiple different options is essentially impossible. It's a once in a blue moon kind of a thing.
You have to have a risk versus reward target where you say like, okay, is it worth shaving or not having to take 5 to 10 extra steps to shoot this target from further away? And that you have to make that target legitimately hard to shoot from that position, but not crapshoot impossible. That's the way to do it.
The stage at Nationals where you could take the poppers in the front from the far right rear.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
it's
really
a balance. If it only costs like a second of movement, it's like, nope, it's not worth the risk. It has to cost you 3 or 4 seconds worth of movement and then make those shots very attainable. And the shots from further away have to be not crapshoot, because people that give a shit aren't going to take crapshoot shots. They have to be difficult but achievable, like 30-yard open paper. Not crapshoot, but difficult but achievable, you know?
Yeah. Shooting on the move is the best element people can incorporate, where it's always an option for folks to do, and it's not
cancer.
You know, folks that are good essentially will take the choice to potentially gamble points for time.
Yeah.
But it's never mandatory, and it's again, that requires nuance on the part of the stage designer to know what is reasonable to ask of people at various skill levels too. You can't just throw targets out that you can see from everywhere and expect it to work itself out.
Well, I love the discussion of stage design, but we're going to take a U-turn.
Oh boy.
Because we got to get back to what the live was all about, right?
All right, fine.
So the live was about, I put out a poll, right? Originally saying single action only guns, should they be allowed in carry optics?
Well, you can't win a division that's dominated by single action guns with a striker fire gun. Isn't that right, Mason?
That's my point.
National level.
That's my point. And everybody, the poll is split, literally dead down the middle. I think it might be leaning So right now it is, let's see here, 49% yes, 51% no. So it's almost split right down the middle, right?
Action type doesn't matter anymore. The aftermarket has solved that problem.
Exactly, right?
That's my opinion.
And so my thought was, and I'll tell you where my head was at, is I was like, well, does it actually make that big of a difference? And where I thought it would make a difference, I looked at all the area matches. I compared open to carry optics. I took the top guy in A, M, B, C, whatever, and I put them against the top guy in A and B, C in their respective division, open versus carry optics. And I took open and put it to minor. And some cases carry optics won, but the cases that open won, it was a spread of 1 to 4%. Now, you take an open gun, you take off the comp, off the frame mounted dot, and remove the mags from being able to hold 28 to 30 rounds and make them this 24+1. And I think that tightens up drastically.
I mean, limited nationals has already solved this debate. Mason has solved this debate. It's not
Mason
a debate
made it
anymore.
easy. Yeah, Mason kind of took the work out of it.
Action type doesn't matter. I switched. I mean, he's a better. He is the argument, not him alone. There are other people that are. Well, quite frankly, the top 3 at limited nationals would be the argument, and you could make the same argument for major versus minor. Although talking to Nils about it, his opinion is that he could have finished higher shooting major just on his own. Like, from what he said was, I know that I shoot basically the same time, generally speaking, with better points shooting major. I just didn't want to do it this year. I wanted to do what I did, which is, I think, completely reasonable. And my thought process for myself, major versus minor, was that I shoot a minor gun faster. I don't actually think I shoot a minor gun faster. I think I shoot it a little tiny bit more accurate, but not enough to make up for the points spread. But so that's not really the question. But action type being the question, the aftermarket has solved that problem. If you want a 2-pound trigger in a striker fire or double action, single action hammer fire gun, you can have it.
Done. Yeah, done. Dude, I've seen some CZs with triggers where I'm like, that may be better than my 2011 trigger, right? And I'm not even lying. I've played with some SIGs where I'm like, dude, this is marginally less than my 2011.
And for me, the trigger on my Legion is better for me than a 1911 or 2011 style trigger for USPSA competition. What I can do, and this is just me, what I can do better with a shorter trigger is split a little bit faster. But what I do better with a trigger that's a little bit longer and has a really smooth but longer break is I am a little bit more accurate and stable on longer shots because I have less of a tendency to jerk the trigger. So I would rather take the, going to a 15 split from a 13 split, going, from a 2011 to a SIG, and be slightly more accurate at distance. And I'm not saying that is for anybody else. It's only for me. But even with many, many years and lots of training of shooting single action triggers, I still personally had the tendency to get a little snatchy with a very, very short, very, very crisp trigger. And that doesn't happen with a trigger that moves, 2 to 3 times as much during the break and has the same weight. For me, it's just easier to have a smoother all the way back to the rear trigger pull. And I find that I'm more accurate at distance with that trigger. So I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters.
I don't either, but the what I kept getting, and Mason brought up this, I think, is people were worried, hey, you add 2011s and single action CZs and Tanfoglios into carry optics, and now you have a gear race. But my thought process on that was if somebody wanted a 2011 and wanted to shoot a 2011, they would have a 2011.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the perception of an advantage, and then there's an advantage. I think that a 2011 will always have a perception of being an advantage, but whether or not it is an advantage is a different thing. I think if you're talking about 15 years ago, in the beginning of production, or 20, or however long ago it was, when people were shooting Glocks and M&Ps, and the triggers were real long and real heavy and real spongy and real shitty, that it was different. And anymore, I think that the aftermarket has solved that problem. That's just my opinion.
Dude, if you put a 9mm slide ride 2011 in my hands with give me a 30 round mag, and you put Mason with his gun ready for carry optics on the same match, he's going to kick my face in.
Well, yeah.
I'm not a bad shooter,
sure.
Right? If we shoot against each other, say there's a X amount of percent, say we're separated by 3% on a normal day, right? Is me shooting that 2011 going to make up that 3%? No, because fundamentally, I just am the shooter I am.
I think if you really don't think action type matters, you can neck it down to like 4 divisions.
That's my argument. Yeah, I don't think it matters.
I don't know if I agree, but the idea of necking it down to just 4 divisions is an attractive concept to me because I don't care.
Yeah,
we
had this conversation a few months ago. I like the idea of Well, I don't love major power factor, but I know a lot of people really do like it. I don't like the dynamic of what you can get away with, especially with the hit factors being what they sometimes are with major power factor. But a lot of people do, and I don't think I don't think it would be right to smoke it yet. Although I haven't heard anybody say that if they were to start a brand new shooting sport right now, that they would include major power factor in it. Like I've never heard anybody say it. They all say the same thing. They all say either like time plus or just minor power factor scoring.
So what if we put 2 Masons against each other, one with his current carry optics gun and one with the carry optics 2011? Who wins?
The one that shot better on the day.
Boom. It's the same Mason.
I mean,
I'm just attracted to the idea still, and call me a traditionalist or whatever, but I'm attracted to the idea of like having a division that is legitimately, or at least ostensibly, production, like the way that used to be defined. And you could have an irons and optics version of whatever that looks like. And what you do outside of that, I honestly don't care.
So you just wanted to go back to out of the box, just production
stock
gun,
car racing, man.
Stock, basic guns, 10 rounds or 15 rounds, whatever. 10 rounds if we fix stage design, 15 otherwise. One with an optic, one without, fight it out.
See,
to me, that's attractive, yeah.
I think that introduces more of a gear race than any other idea. And because the manufacturers then, like the actual gun manufacturer, is going to be super incentivized to year after year come out with the next version of their gun that has one or two more whiz-bang things on it. And again, it's perception. It's whether or not it actually does make a difference is a different thing than whether or not people perceive it as being different or perceive it as being an advantage. But if you don't allow people to make small, simple modifications, we are past small, simple modifications. I understand. But if you don't allow, I know, but if you don't allow people to make small, simple modifications to their gun, they're just waiting for the next SIG that comes out or the next CZ that comes out that, oh, well, this one has a 1 pound lighter trigger and extended magazine release. I want that one. Oh shit. Well, this one has whatever thing it has on it that you just won't let them put that on their own gun.
If we come out with that division right now, it's going to be dominated by 2 firearms. And it's going to be the SIG X5 Legion and the new Canic.
And a Shadow 2.
Shadow 2, because it's got to be stock. You can't change anything.
Shadow 2.
I don't think
a normal Shadow 2 isn't.
It used to be like it had to be stock for the most part from the outside, right? Like that was the rule. Like no aftermarket slides or like, doing whatever you want to the frame. You can't put out race triggers or race hammers or any of that crap in there.
So again,
like that
race
did,
triggers
even
or
though
race
there
hammers,
was guns that rose to the top when it was like that, the general vibe of the division was still like folks shot guns with 5 pound DA triggers or Glocks that had essentially like 3 or 4 pound triggers, right? Like it was people that could shoot a gun legitimately out of the box as well as they could shoot their competition gun. Right. And that is completely gone. There's legitimately not a place for those folks anymore at all. Like if you had a cop that wanted to come out and shoot his duty gun at a match, like he'd be hosed, right? Like there's no doubt that you can say action type doesn't matter. You can say minor advantages don't matter. It all comes down to the shooter. But like if you put 2 equal shooters against each other, one with a turd and one with a race gun, the one with the race gun's probably going to win.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean,
Mason, what would you think about? So this has been my proposal on podcasts and stuff in the past for if I were king and I could redo all the divisions, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Don't change open, don't change carry optics, don't change limited. Leave them alone completely. Okay. And then I would say this: combine limited 10 single stack and in some people's minds production basically into a catch-all low cap division, which will attract people that are either in states where that's what they have available to them for magazines, or people that just really like a 1911 or really like the challenge that comes with shooting a low cap gun. And I would say there's no stipulations on action type. I could go either way on whether or not a box is important. I would say that if you choose minor, you get 10 rounds. If you choose major, you get 8 rounds. Double stacks don't get magwells. Single stacks do get magwells.
Yeah, seems reasonable to me.
And then you make production high cap. Whether you go 15 rounds or you do my idea of if it fits in the box, you can cram however many rounds you want in there, or if you go all the way up to 140 millimeter mags, which then does get it dangerously close to limited minor, but it's a different action type. Gun has to fit. Well, I guess the box kind of goes away at that point, right? Unless you wanted to come up with a different box. That idea isn't fully fleshed out. But in one way or another, you basically make production high cap. So you have a major power factor, full on race gun division, a equivalent of that in limited, which is major power factor dominated again, full on race gun division again with magwells and race holsters and thumb rests and all the shit that you want, right? And then there's like a next level down, which is carry optics, and production is closer to that in terms of capacity, but is still mostly for double action, single action, or hammer or striker fired guns. It is high cap, but maybe it doesn't quite have the capacity of limited. It doesn't have the scoring advantage of limited. And then I would personally just get rid of revolver. I guess you could have it if you want it. I don't care. I don't care about revolver either way. And then all of the low cap divisions are pulled into one for the people that really like low cap, for the people that are stuck in that for, round capacity limits for their state, or for people that just really love a 1911 and they're not really at a disadvantage whether they shoot major or minor. And honestly, a 1911 with a magwell loads the same to me as a production gun or a 2011 without a magwell. It really consolidates all of that stuff down to 5 divisions from 8.
That's not a terrible idea.
It doesn't do anything for the single action slide right optic 20. It doesn't touch those people.
Yeah, that's where I think we go production irons, production optics, right? Lump everything in just like you were saying, right? But that's production irons and production optics. If you want to shoot low cap, you can either shoot an iron sight gun that is striker fired or single action, double action, whatever. And then your production optics is same thing, optics, 10 rounds, whatever, all minor power factor. And then you have limited and limited optics. Maybe they're minor power factor, but limited irons, you can do whatever you want. Load the gun up, 141.25 millimeter mag capacity. Have fun. Same with the optics version. Now you can put an optic on it. Have fun. Now we have iron versus optic, low capacity, iron versus optic, high capacity. And then keep open if you want to keep open. I personally, I love open because that's where the heat is, but if the heat left tomorrow, if no top guys were shooting open, I wouldn't fuck with it.
Well, that's one of the things that chaps my ass about the current state of production. I got so much shit as a single stack shooter for a long time. I literally picked up a different gun because I like iron sights and minor scoring. I like that. I like USPSA, and I like a stricter accuracy requirement than some divisions. And I could really care less about the 10 rounds versus high cap. I'm used to low cap or whatever, but I went to production for the heat, and it's all gone. And that's the part that it's like, don't let it die completely. And to me, my assessment of it is that it's the magazine capacity more than the optics. That is why it is dwindling. And it is because of stage design. It totally is. But although your thought process is really, really good about actually having like a minute or a maximum allowable shots from a position instead of a maximum required shots from a position. That's a really good thought that I hadn't thought of.
Great thought.
But to me, it's like my thought process before that was like, you will not save production without more rounds in the gun because it's just no fun.
You can save it without more rounds in the gun if you make that simple change that Mason brought up. Change the wording.
It's a good change.
You cannot see more than 8 rounds from that position. Not saying you can't have another 8-round position 3 yards away, right? But from that position, you cannot see more than 8 rounds.
You can't make it impossible to design a bad stage. You can just make it happen less.
Yeah, you can just make it suck that much less, right? But that's where you go. And Mason, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're wanting the low cap challenge, right? Why not make it low cap irons and optics, 10 rounds, production style guns, shoot away. And then if you want high cap, then you go limited irons, limited optics, race the gun out as much as you want. Fuck it. Put mag wells on all these now not carry optics guns and have some fun. If you want to challenge a low cap with no mag well, do it. If you want to challenge a high cap with full blown race guns and fucking race to the end, go for it.
So if I was king for a day, to answer Kenny's question, I'd leave open, apart from changing how you define major power factor, I would leave limited.
It's got to go lower.
Alone. I'd leave limited and open alone. I would do what Kay said. I'd put 2011s or whatever you want and carry optics basically short of compensators and maintain 140 mil mags. Make a new carry optics division at 15 rounds, make it legitimately factory 15 round cap, and then leave production how it is, or bring production up to 15 and make it legitimately production, not limited minor or limited 10 minor. And then all the low cap divisions, I don't give a shit. Do whatever you want with.
Kill them all.
See, I just say combine them all into one so they actually have some people to play with. I mean, at most major matches, if you were to combine L10 and single stack and prod, well, you'd have, at that point, you'd have a reasonable amount of people to shoot against. Whereas when they're sectioned off like they are right now, it's like, I can tell you as a dude that's like pretty good but not great, having won a handful of area matches in single stack, it's because not very many people shoot it. And that's exactly why I quit shooting it and went into production, was to shoot with more people. And now I see that one going by the wayside, and I'm like, well, fuck, man. I don't really like shooting with dots on my gun. I don't really like major power factor scoring. I guess I'll just keep shooting prod and bitch about the low attendance. And it'd be nice to it'd be nice to come up with a reasonable idea to boost it. And to me, at least from just gauging the feel of people that I talk to, You know, that there's so many people at my local club that start out in production and move away, and they always go high cap. Sometimes they go limited, and sometimes they go carry optics, and they always say the same thing. They always say it's round count. That's why they did it. They did it for round count.
Everybody who leaves production, for the most part, tells me it's because of round count, and because they're tired of standing reloads. They're tired of having to deal with current stage designs with low capacity magazines. Brennan Conway, ladies and gentlemen, what's up, dog?
Just driving home from the range, man.
What's up with y'all driving and watching your phones? Jesus Christ! You're a bunch of unsafe motherfuckers.
I've just been listening, bro.
Hey, I'm lying. I do the same thing. Don't it? My wife gets so mad at me, but I do it too. I don't do it when she's in the car because I don't want to listen to her complain about it. But when she's not there, bro, I am YouTubing away.
Candy Crush.
Yeah. Do people still play that?
I don't know.
All right, Brennan, what do you think?
So my only deal, like, with the production thing, like, I don't really care about the division, but more of, like, the way I look at the production with the round count, people are pushing for 15. It's like, okay, well, you've got an extra 5 rounds, but, you know, each position is limited to a certain amount of rounds. So if you try to blend 2 positions in with 15-round mags, you're going to have a standing reload there. So I've never understood the big push for that. Yeah, you might could blend 1 or 2 targets into a position, but like Kenny was talking about earlier, you might shoot targets that are out there at 10 or 15 yards that you wouldn't normally shoot just because you've got some extra rounds now. So I've never really seen the big push for the 15-round mags other than you get a couple makeup shots.
So well, there's a lot of 5 and 6 and 7 round positions that people don't take into account. Like at the last local match I just shot, there was a stage that was the first one that I walked that had 5 different shooting positions, and they were 7, 6, 6, 5 with a mini popper at about 15 yards and 6.
Yeah.
And I literally looked at that stage. I'm like, I don't want to do 4 fucking reloads, and said, sign me up for a limited minor. I'm grabbing my big mags. I don't want to do it. It's not going to be fun.
And I guess it could just be like where all the locals that I shoot, normally they set up all of the stages, and normally you go to a spot, you shoot 8 shots. You know, it's normally that's the way it's set up at my locals that I shoot. So I guess I don't see it as much as everybody else. But
so what do you think about Mason's thought of changing the verbiage to where you cannot physically see more than 8 rounds from a position in a stage?
I think that would be good, but it would suck for high cap guys because then we can't blend as much.
No, you can. Here's the thing. That's what I'm saying. That's where stage design comes into play. Because, you can't see more than 8 rounds from that position. But guess what? You can maybe shoot 3 or 4 of those on the way out to another position 3 to 4 yards away that has shootable targets, right?
It would make the difference between high cap and low cap a little bit less. Like you look at IPSC matches where they have the 3-2-1 rule and they have the rule that we're describing.
Yeah.
And just watching a run between an open shooter and a standard shooter, or particularly between a standard shooter and a production shooter, the difference is not so pronounced because there's a lot more moving around. There's a lot more setting up for like one plate and one paper, or a very round light positions like that. And it's not like the gun just comes up and you just like basically turret and just blast the entire time. So what Brendan's saying is true. If that's, the thing you're into, then there's not going to be as much of that if you make that change.
Yeah.
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 I would wonder
that's the thing I'm not into personally.
I would wonder about how you would get around the times where it's like, okay, well, from this position you can see 8 rounds, but if I take 2 steps forward, I can still see those 2 targets, and now these 3 targets present themselves. So now there's 10. So is that a legal stage or not?
No, it's not. Move the barriers. Figure it out.
Well, it's the definition of a position isn't really very well defined.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what I can make into one position is not the same as what Tim Herron can make it in one position. Like I can stretch my head around a lot farther than some people.
Ooh, short jokes. It was only a small one though. Tim, don't get upset.
He's just the only person I can think of that everybody would know what I'm talking about. It's nothing personal.
He's a little sour.
Brennan, what do you think? Your service sucks.
Dude, I tried to pull off at a good spot. Is it good or no?
Well, you fucking failed.
Yeah, you're good for now.
It's fine. Just talk. We can hear you. Can't see you much.
Yeah, I understand where, especially where Mason's coming from. It kind of
All right, good talk.
All right, Brennan, Brennan, we're gonna have to get you on here when you have good
Fro's been
service.
picking his nose. Look at that. That's embarrassing.
Yeah. That's not good at all. Hold on. How do I? Yeah, we're gonna do. Oh, I think he's gone now. Is he gone now? Yeah, I think his shit booted. Oh no, we lost somebody. Who did we lose? Kenny. We lost Kenny.
Kenny's
No,
blanking
I'm
out
still
somehow.
here. I'm still
Oh,
here.
are you? Oh,
I
okay.
just
We
put my
lost.
phone down.
Oh,
Okay, cool. Then we lost Brennan. Oh well, let's bring somebody else on.
Bring somebody else on.
Let's see here. Ooh, Jim Krantz. There we go. Let's get old Jimmy in here. He's a carry optic shooter through and through.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, Brennan does live in the fucking middle of nowhere in like Alabama somewhere or some shit. What's up, dude? He's in a hotel per usual, and I can't tell if he's getting headphones or yeah. Hey, buddy.
Sorry, I was getting headphones on.
What a professional.
What are we talking about today?
Well, fuck. We was hoping you already knew. So we're talking about a bunch of shit, right? We're talking about one, allowing single action only guns into carry optics, and two, if we don't do that right, how do we fix the divisions where they currently sit, where you can have a slide ride, non-compensated, single action only gun in the divisions? We're currently talking about stage design, but we're also talking about a couple other things, what to do with the divisions, how to make them. We've had some other ideas come up. We want to know what your thoughts are on those things.
I definitely have some opinions, but I have a couple of different ideas. And it seems like a lot of folks that are very into this sport tend to divide when we talk about divisions. Obviously there's been some new divisions that have been super successful, and you have divisions like Open that should certainly always be around. But I definitely think that they should drop the power factor based on some of the engineering reports that I've seen. But the low cap seems to be the hot topic. Low cap divisions such as, Revolver, which should just die, single stack, and sorry, I didn't mean to do that while you're drinking. Revolver, which should die, single stack, and production. I really like the idea of, the way IPSC does production, except for, where they place everything on the belts. But I don't necessarily think that throwing more rounds at a division is just the solution. I think we need to get more consistent at, and I'm definitely kind of like where Mason's been at on some of this stuff. I think we need to get more consistent at the way in which we address and build stages. The problem is how do you implement that at anything below level 2? And I'm kind of curious where y'all are at on that conversation. Mason, I guess I'm pinging you on this one.
Well,
I
think if you really wanted to make that change, you would have to do it from the top down, most likely. And you could do it the way I described by having a little bit more of a sensibly constructed RO recertification test and provide the information to people. Like just getting them thinking about, for example, what is the purpose of each target on a stage? And if the purpose of it is just to, like, inconvenience people with a small number of rounds in their gun, or if it's just to jack up the factor, then you should probably consider nuking the target, right? And that's just one small example, but if you had people thinking about stage construction in that way, particularly CROs, that would be a really good thing. And that would be a grassroots way to do it, because it would force people to basically get themselves educated in order to requalify for their RO cert. As far as getting people excited to want to do it or getting people behind it, you would have to basically show people the benefits of doing it and how stages that are constructed in that manner are better. And that would have to happen most likely at level, 3s and 4s first.
Right.
Because
so the problem, though, is that people, when we're looking at the way people get into level 2s and level 3s, is they get interested in those by shooting level 1s, right? They're club matches, right? That's where people kind of get excited about the sport, and then they go from there. Club matches are typically taken over by and run by folks that don't go to as many level 2s and level 3s anymore. It's kind of the guys that are on the way out, not necessarily on the way out, but like they're kind of over that, being the type that's going for those wins is trying to be one of those top guys. And those guys tend to devolve away from interesting, good, creative stage designs to get into more of the gimmicky stuff. Some of the things I've seen a lot in Louisiana, for example, I've been spending a lot of time down here, is they'll build a great stage, but then they look at the round count and they go, oh, shoot, we don't have enough rounds on the stage, because they think that they have to hit some sort of metric based on people wanting to shoot more rounds. So they'll just double stack a bunch of different targets, right? They're like, oh, here's a target. I'm going to stack another target on top of it and put a no shoot in between, right? So I think the problem is, the root cause of the problem is we have a legacy workforce that is working on level ones, and that legacy workforce is not going to go away because you and I are trying to spend more time going to and participating in and trying to get higher in the levels at the level 2s and the level 3s and stuff. We don't necessarily have the bandwidth, whether because we're trying to be national champions or because we have day jobs or things like that. We don't have the bandwidth to go and work all of these lower level matches. How do you get those guys who are out there sweating their asses off, putting on matches to the point of where they don't even like shooting anymore?
Well, I don't think you're really going to fix that issue.
Obligated to put on these matches because someone's gonna.
I don't think you're going to fix that issue in the sense of like turning those guys around or changing their interests, most likely, and that's not going to come from the bottom up. Ultimately, right. If you don't like the way a club puts on stages, you have two options: you don't go to the club, or you show up and you help them put up stages. In my local club, I haven't shot a local match outside of my local club since COVID started. And anytime I'm not already traveling other places, I will be there setting up stages. And I try to be Socratic in the sense that I talk to the match director. I say, hey, where can I go? Like, what base do you have open? What sort of stage are you looking for? And I'll set up my stage. Me and my wife will go set up a stage, and then we'll go around and we'll basically do, QC and try to help, in a nice way, say, hey, what are you doing with this target? What are you doing with this stage? And it's like, and sometimes you show up and it's like, it's a rectangle going from the back of the bay all the way to the front berm. And it's just turning and shooting stuff all the way down. And you have to try to find a respectful way to say, like, what are you doing with the stage? And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not ever going to fix the problem.
Right, absolutely. So there's certainly some guys that are willing to do that. Like you said, like your prime example, you and your wife are. But the folks, someone like me, for example, I try to help out where I can, even when I'm traveling for work, wherever I'm at, whatever section I'm at, whatever locals I'm at, I try to provide that type of support with whatever time and bandwidth I have. But there's very few of us. There's very, very few of us. So obviously, this is a niche thing, and the folks that can see the things that need to be addressed, and then the folks that can actually address those things, there's not a lot of them. So I guess I would maybe go one step deeper. I know we're trying to go up rather than go down, but I would go maybe one step deeper. How do we get, and I think you kind of touched on this, how do we get those folks that are new and interested in the sport and getting involved in the sport educated on what looks good, right? JJ once told me, he's like, when you look for the right stuff, the wrong stuff stands out. I kind of apply that in like a couple of different things. So how do you get people to see what is right so that they want to go and affect those changes at their local club matches all the time, so we can spread this general awareness?
So why not have a dedicated platform that USPSA can use for shooters to submit stages that they've shot at matches that they thought, okay, this is a good stage. And then that stage gets submitted to USPSA. They review footage of that stage. They look at the stage design and go, cool. And they put it in some type of format where if a local match is looking at setting up stages, they can go on this and they can pick stages off of this book, and it can get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stage designs on there. So where you're not always shooting the same thing over and over, and you can tweak it. You can make changes,
that would
whatever.
Require the organization to use tools that they don't know or are unwilling to use, right? Things like surveys, things like listening to their membership. This is all great stuff. This is very simple stuff. I could do this in 10 minutes with a Google Sheet, right? But the organization seems to brush this aside continually.
Yeah, well, that's where the change in leadership needs to come then. We need to find those people who will do that. Or just finally say enough and say, hey, dude, as the members, let's put together a poll and say, hey, this is how many members that you represent want this change? Are you going to fucking do it, or are you going to sit back and keep doing the same old shit?
But so what if they don't do it? They can literally just ignore you, turn around, and I know we're trying to get better people in there. I understand that, but they can completely just ignore you, turn around, and no one's going to do anything. There's no check for that stuff. The answer is certainly getting better people in there, but we've seen the way they respond.
I think you would be surprised at how many susceptible people are in those positions. I think what they're afraid to do is rock the boat in the wrong way, but I think that's getting better. Right? At the end of the day, it's an elected position, right? So they make a move, it backfires, they're like, fuck, there goes that, right? But it's at the end of the day, it's a volunteer position basically anyway. So for the most part.
Actually, let me pause you right here for a second. Someone asked me recently, and maybe this is a fault of my own, why I'm not RO certified. And part of the answer is I have not found the time within my schedule to be in one state for long enough to sign up for an RO class, because I'm here and there and everywhere. But I do think it is kind of dumb, and I know some clubs do this better than others, but I think it's kind of dumb that someone is told that they should go and become an RO, and then they have to pay money to take a class that needs some major updates and then take a test. And then when they try to provide feedback on, questions that they may have gotten wrong or potentially need to be addressed or updated or revised, that just gets shot down. It's like, well, this is just the way it is. Right.
So that comes down to, again, vote in the right people, vote out the wrong people. Like Hopkins said, vote them out.
We keep coming back to this. I certainly see that we definitely keep coming back to this. And I agree. That's the direction we need to go. That's definitely the solution.
If you're not happy, simple as this, whoever's in there, don't vote for him again.
Right. But
if you don't like how it's going, don't.
The organization have voted for the current administration. How many people, like, I've been in the sport for 3 years, something like that, right? I've never had an opportunity to vote for someone, to my knowledge, except for Hopkins for A3. I had the opportunity to vote for that area because I was in Area 3. I don't think that most of the local folks that go to their matches, that go to their level 1 matches, have any idea how any of that stuff works, because the organization doesn't put out marketing material. And I think there's a reason for that. They don't want to make it too straightforward to people about how to get the wrong people out. They want to keep their jobs and keep their salaries. But I genuinely think like the majority of the membership doesn't even understand how the organizational structure works.
Then it's up to us as members that are understanding of those things to spread the word ourselves. Then,
so we have platforms that have tons of traction.
Yeah,
right? We have platforms. We have social media pages. We have websites. We have all this good stuff, right? But when it comes to a new member signing up, they're going to go to the website, right? And they're going to go to the USPSA website. We've seen how bad that is. Again, we keep coming back to getting the right people in there, because the only way to change that is from the inside and getting those right people in there. And it seems like we're going to continue to come back to that on all of these topics.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm pretty well like up to date with most things, and fuck, dude, I don't know half the people running for USPSA president. I know Hopkins. I know Yeeman. I don't know anybody else. I know those two guys. I know what they're about. Yeah, actually, I don't know anybody else.
Know anyone else?
Are they really running if you don't know who they are?
Yeah, exactly.
That's really a good question, right?
Yeah.
Like we saw that with presidential elections, right?
And
we see two candidates. We see a red and a blue.
Here's the thing. Like, the perfect guy might be buried, right? The perfect guy is too damn busy to deal with this bullshit. He's making real money, doing a real job somewhere where he can affect many people's lives positively, not doing this. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, true, but that's where I think
the candidates are not the real guy. I think
yes,
candidates running.
But that's where I think we get rid of a USPSA president. We have the board of directors that are member elected, and they hire a CEO, and that CEO is susceptible to the board of directors and the membership, just like any other nonprofit organization on the face of the fucking planet.
Mm-hmm.
They operate a multi-million-dollar nonprofit organization and don't have a CEO. How does that make sense?
It really doesn't.
Well, you're going to get one.
Yeah.
So get appointed by the board that we're trying to vote out. So I don't know if that's necessarily what you want.
Right. Yeah, so that's the problem. Is like they're going to get one. They're just probably, unless we get those people out, going to vote in a
But
really
then,
shitty
but
one.
then over
Or
time,
hire, I should say.
you vote in the right area directors that are going to do one of two things. You're going to hold that CEO accountable, or they're going to fucking replace him.
All these problems are fixable. It's just going to take time, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time.
It's not going to be able to be fixed in the next 6 months or a year. It's going to take 2 or 3 years.
We're arguing about something that is years away from even happening. And this isn't, now we're talking about the organization, which I hate doing on this platform nowadays because I always get shit for it. And I get dirty looks when I go to matches. Right?
Well,
but
does a lot of
do you really care?
I don't give two fucks. That's
come on.
I really don't.
Everyone knows.
Which is why, like, in all reality, I would never run for area director, even if I had the time, right, or the want to. To be that person, I would have to change myself so much that, like, I couldn't come on here and do this with you guys. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't enjoy the sport because now
I would for sure run for area director if I wasn't embedded into my career the way I am. I think it would be a really fun opportunity. If it paid me like what I make in my career, I think it's an excellent opportunity, and I like the sport enough that I think I could affect positive change.
Yeah,
I got a question. Well, I got two questions for everybody. What do you think is the biggest issue in USPSA matches, and what do you think, or in competition itself in the actual game, and then what do you think is the biggest issue with the organization?
I got it. Same answer for both questions. Right. Number one is officiating, and this is not to trash officials. The training is not with the current times. So you look at just the RO recertification process. It basically you'll be posed a question. It's a completely random set of questions. Most of the time, it's like something that has nothing to do with your ability to RO a stage or RO a shooter, and it says multiple choice, select the correct answer, then cite the exact rule. So what you then do there is basically, when I take my RO recertification, most of the time I'll know the answer, so I just search the correct or click the correct answer, and then I search a keyword on the USPSA app and find the rule. And that's not what you do as an RO. What you do as an RO is you have to know the rules and you have to be able to make calls quickly on demand, right? So there's two things you can do there right off the jump. You retool that program so either A, it's multiple choice with relevant questions to being an RO, which right now it is not, and B, you put an actual timed element in as far as being able to call practical scores by either looking at a target, seeing what a shooter is doing in real time, etc., or putting in critical thinking knowledge that encourages ROs to understand how the sport works and encourages them to design better stages or be a better official, not just know how to use the rule book, because that was a relevant skill when we had paper rule books, but nowadays that's not what being an RO is even about. Like your ability to use the search function on an app is all that's being tested when you have a 45-day window to complete the test on niche irrelevant questions.
Right. So Control F is not a relevant solution here. So I got to ask you this. I'm curious, Mason. Do you think, I agree with you, officiating is a huge problem. Do you think that you need to be not necessarily nice, but a good person to be a good officiator?
No.
I don't see how it's even relevant, honestly.
Okay.
I'm an asshole, but I'm a good RO.
I think a lot of people get caught up on this. I think a lot of people get caught up on this because they have disagreements with ROs, right? And they are frustrated by the RO's lack of knowledge and lack of critical thinking skills. So then they decide that person is a shitty person. Then the RO doubles down on them, gets upset at them. And now that there's some sort of squabble between a competitor and an RO who's also a member. And then this kind of spreads and it carries on. Those people continue to double down later down the road. And this culture perpetuates.
That happened. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Something similar to that happened at Area 7 with me, right? I shot a stage. I can't remember which stage it was.
You pissed somebody off and
I didn't.
A large response? I can't believe it.
I didn't piss anybody off. I actually so here's the thing. I shot an array, right? And from the position I shot, from where my feet were and where I was standing and where I took the shots, you physically could not shoot through the barrier. It's impossible. Mm-hmm. There was a hole in the barrier they said that it was a mic, right? And they couldn't even tell which shot was through the barrier. He just said one of these went through here, so it's a mic, right? I said, call the range master, and immediately the guy was like, when the range master shows up, the first thing the RO said to the range master was, if you give him that call, I'm ripping up my fucking RO tag and I'm going home.
Wow.
Well, how does that make sense, right? That's immediately in my head, I'm like, you're a terrible RO. You should not be doing this job, right? Regardless of, I've never even met the guy, but hey, if you fucking hate me, cool, but do your job. You know what I mean? And it happened a couple times on that stage where he got shitty with a shooter, and I'm just like, this person should immediately, the range master should be like, hey, you're gone. Like, thanks for playing. You can still shoot the match, but like, you don't need to be officiating the match, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I show the range master everything, and he goes, no, I completely agree. And that same RO goes, well, there's a piece of wood in that target from the barrier, and I inspect those targets, and that wood wasn't there. So inevitably, I was like, you know what? I'm fucking done arguing with this. Give me the mic. I'm just want to move on. We've been standing here for 5 minutes. This is fucking stupid. I'll take the mic and go, right? But those type of ROs turn off new shooters, one, and two, kill the sport in a way of, do you really trust that guy to be a good officiant? No. And
But there's an inverse. There's an inverse to this as well. Someone just said nice ROs can be pushed around.
True.
Nice ROs, quote unquote, can get pushed around by people who potentially know the rules and maybe know the rules enough to leverage them against someone who doesn't have the critical thinking ability, and they just give up, right? They don't want to argue. They're not people that want to insert themselves into a situation. So they turn around and they'll just give the call to the shooter. So there's two sides of this, right? There's people who are shitty and they just double down because they're stupid. And then there's people who are nice and just give up because they're stupid. Because they don't have that education.
I've seen a competitor who is extremely well spoken, knows how to argue in his own favor, talk an RO into giving what would be the tightest double I have ever heard of in my life on a 30-yard swinger that the dude shot on the move, and talked the guy into giving him the call. So it goes both ways.
Hell of a shot.
Huh?
So what did you say?
Hell of a shot.
Oh, I was like, there's no fucking way. I said, you didn't, I right there in front of the RO, I said, there's no fucking way you're honestly going to call for that, right? You shot that on the move from 30 yards, and there's no signs that that's a double. The guy was like, yeah, call it.
I think if you want to actually rectify this problem, that's step number one to getting it rectified, is you promote a culture where radical transparency and fighting for the score you deserve is the status quo, not just getting whatever you can get away with.
No,
and
yeah, 100%.
It requires being confrontational with anyone that stands in the way of that goal, whether it's an official or someone arguing for shit they don't deserve.
Yeah, 100%. And the guy, eventually I was like, you know what? It was right around the time all the controversy I was going through before was happening, right, with the last situation. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to make a fucking scene. I'm going to walk away. I can't afford to have anybody else call me a piece of shit. I'm gone, right? But, you know, it's clearly but you have to call out the bullshit, and you have to fight for the good shit. You know what I mean? And that comes down to shooters. Like, I've seen multiple shooters get a call and say, no, that's not correct. I didn't shoot that. That was a mic, or that was a delta, or whatever. And that's how it should be, right? It's the integrity of the sport.
I think I've been very lucky in that regard.
You can't expect
very little of any of that. I experienced none of it locally, and I think that's because we have always, at least at my club, I know it's different everywhere you go, the standard has always been like, there's no bullshit. You get what you shot. And that, I mean, from like one of the very best ROs, actually I would say two of the very best ROs that we have at our club are both CROs. They are hard to get along with dudes, honestly. I get along with them pretty well, but they are absolutely by the book, whether it is advantageous for them or not. And that has just always been what I have seen and what's been reflected back to me. And I don't know, I've had very, very few issues at major matches. And I just wonder if it's weak leadership from the range master, maybe, or from their match directors that just, hey, thanks so much for helping out, that they're never like people are afraid to step on the toes of an RO lest you insult the volunteers. I don't know. I haven't seen much of that. It obviously exists because other people talk about it all the time.
The world needs more assholes.
Man, we got.
Well, I think honestly, the sort of ROs that are going to get hard-headed with you and like argue against, like in the situation you're describing, Trevor, like you're not going to fix those people except by having a proper apparatus to recommend official discipline for officials. Like the appeals process we have is not functional. But the real issue is not usually those sorts of people. It's people that get pushed around or competitors that argue for shit they don't deserve. Right?
I think it should be a culture in the sport to where if somebody is arguing for something that is just so clearly not a thing, right? That's just not even possible.
Well,
not necessarily not possible, but
do you call that out when you see it? Because I do.
Have you met me? I'm a fucking piece of shit.
Well, we've got one old guy. Yes. Now that I talk so highly about my club, we do have one old guy that we shoot with, that I've shot with for a really long time, that told me point blank when I made fun of him I said, "You've never missed a target. You only have doubles that you get and doubles that you don't." And he goes, "Hey, you'd be surprised how often you get them. I argue every single one." And I'm like,
when I first started shooting, that was a huge culture in these matches. When I first started shooting, like 2018-ish, like mid-2018, dude, every single match I went to, if I had a miss and on a target where I'm just like, it makes sense, they'd be like, "No, dude, fuck, call the range master." And I'm like, "Really?" They're like, "Yeah, call the range master."
Squad mates who you thought were like good, honest squad mates were like pushing people and saying, "Hey, call the range master." Like, so you get that call or whatever.
And I fell for it because I was a new shooter, not even taking the sport seriously. It was just a hobby for me, right? I'm working fucking 80 hours a week, and when I had time, I decided to do this. I was like, hey, okay, if that's what we're supposed to do, then I'll do that. And then I really quickly was like, man, I'm not going to get any better if I keep trying to cheat the system.
No. I've had one target pulled ever at a major match, and it was for a perf hit, a Mike versus I think it was on the very, very top of a head box or something. So Mike versus a Charlie, and I couldn't tell from where the RO was holding the the overlay, and I said, "Listen to the range master, I'll take whatever your call is, but I've never done this before. I've never had to pull a target before, but I don't know. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure that kind of stuff happens. Obviously it does, but man, that hasn't been my experience. Maybe it's a back east thing.
Yeah.
I think it's not a regional thing. I think it's a club thing. I think
it's
club, or not necessarily club. I think section culture. I think there's a lot of folks that just kind of develop this squad mentality, and then that travels around the United States because you'll see this from certain groups.
Let me ask you this: if you're, does anybody here play golf?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, Mason, no, too fucking manly for that. Look at you.
Too fucking poor for that.
Look at that, you chiseled jaw sumbitch. No, so if you're playing golf with your buddies, right, and one of your buddies' foot wedges out of the trees, do you call him out on it?
I don't know what that means.
His ball is in the trees, right? He hit his drive into the trees, and his ball's into the trees.
Okay, that's a tough one. So
it depends.
I've played for a really long time, and there's two different types of golf.
100%.
No.
Shooting is one type of shooting.
You're totally correct.
If you're hanging out with the boys, just shooting around, but I'm talking about if you're playing in your local club tournament.
100%.
Absolutely
right?
Unacceptable.
If you're just at the range, if you're just at the golf course and you're drunk and you're literally playing hammer and trump with your buddies,
I'd laugh. And he plays twice a year and he's drunk. I don't care. You can throw the ball for all.
Yeah, but if you're playing your local club tournament, local club match or your local golf club match once a month or whatever, which is about like shooting. You shoot a local match once a month for the most part, unless you're in a good area. If a guy foot wedges out of the trees that you got squatted with, that you got paired with, are you going to call him out on, or are you just going to let it ride?
No, absolutely.
I'm gonna tell him
he's getting called out.
I'm gonna tell him that's one.
Yeah,
right. That's a stroke.
I'm put that down on the scorecard.
But I've played with people who let that go. Right. It's just, but it starts at changing the culture. Us as shooters have to be okay with calling that person out and going through that awkward situation of you're going to look like the asshole to some of the people. Some of the people on that squad are going to look at you and go, wow, dude, like you didn't have to call him out, but you do.
But if you can't change the culture so easily, which it can change over time and with enough loud voices, if you can't change that, you can change systems. So you can create an official way to lodge a real complaint about an RO and have
or shooter,
yeah, and have action happen. And do we really have a process for that now?
Here's another idea. Got another idea. IPSC, they have a competitor card. Every time you show up to the match, you go to gear inspection the day before the match. They write down the position of all your gear, what division you're shooting, what power factor you're shooting, your model gun, everything. Because cheating was so epidemic in other parts of the world that people would change their gear between stages. But part of what they do that's cool is it has a line with a description with every single stage number. And when you show up to the stage, they'll take an inventory of your body, make sure you haven't changed your gear around. And if you have any procedural errors, like you're not allowed to take a sight picture or dry fire, or if you have any sort of an etiquette violation, you'll get a warning. And you get one warning per, essentially, thing per match, right?
And
so
if you
have more than that, they'll start tacking procedurals on your score for the stage. Right?
So
I imagine, yeah.
I like that idea. Said etiquette. You just said etiquette. This is the first time I've heard someone use the term etiquette outside of golf in terms of shooting. Now, I understand that there's some rules, and I've even seen a disqualification for unsportsmanlike conduct or whatever they call it in USPSA. I don't think that people bring that the term etiquette or that mentality from golf into shooting at all. I don't think it exists in shooting. I see a great lack of respect in USPSA in the United States for any form of professional anything, really, whether it comes from the way you dress, the way you present yourself, the way you set up your gear, the way you speak to officials, the way you call for hits. I don't think that that's ever talked about or addressed from the start, at the very lower levels. And then I really don't even see it at majors.
Are we allowed to still make untimely dick jokes?
I don't know.
No,
I think
no one knows.
honestly,
is that an etiquette violation?
Competitor card will probably be harmful to the culture because it promotes this idea that you can push it right up to the line, and we're only going to actually penalize you if you violate whatever rule it is more than once. But it would be like Kenny's saying, it would be a hard and fast way that you could force people to do the right thing, right? And there would be accountability on paper that says, hey, 2 stages ago you asked for a double, and now here you are again asking for a double on a 15-yard tuxedo, right? And it helps paint this image of where your competitive ethics lie.
Yeah,
and I'd like that to be. I would love to see that, but I would love it to be, like you said, formalized in the way of a card.
It'd be easy
because people are going. It absolutely be easy, but people remember that. ROs, competitors, squad mates, people remember that. People are going to remember the nicks on your card. And you're going to develop a very poor reputation. I understand some people don't care about the reputation, but no one's going to want to squad with you if you're a shitty person. You got a bunch of things in your card.
There's people I just plain won't shoot with.
I've said before, if you are transparent to the point, when it comes to dealing with known problematic ROs, and I've said it about IDPA matches in the past, if you just set the expectation of confrontation, if someone tries to mess with your score, then usually it won't happen. Right. And the same thing is true with competitors. If you come to expect confrontation, if it's inconvenient for you to be unethical or dishonest, that will go away quickly. Because most people, I don't think there's very many people that are okay having a reputation of being a cheater and want, to be confronted every time it happens. Like, that's a pretty big deterrent for, I would say, 99% of people.
No, I agree. Absolutely.
100% agree. 100% agree with that. I do. Yeah. I like it. I still am gonna talk shit to all my buddies at the range, though. You won't change that.
Well, and you certainly should be able to have a good time, right? You certainly should be able to have that competitive shit talking with your buddies at the range. But I think we need to understand where the line is drawn in the sand between that and when you step up to the plate, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If I'm in the back talking shit because you shot a mic, I don't want to be penalized. But if you're on the line getting ready and I'm like, hey, don't go shoot a fucking mic, like, that's not okay.
Right.
It's differences. Know the line.
That
people.
is something, again, that would be really easy to do. As like, you know, you talk about collecting information for the top to do something with. You could do the same thing top down, like, you know, either push people surveys or informative presentations or whatever the case may be. Or honestly, I don't think it would be the worst idea to force people to do perhaps not a black badge course like they do in other parts of IPSC, but if you did biannually or, you know, every 3 years or so, you push someone like, hey, you need to do this basically this quiz or this, you know, online seminar to be able to be qualified for competition. That wouldn't be the worst thing.
But
and
here's
all
the
those
thing.
minor etiquette,
To get
all those
renewed,
basic,
for sure.
all the rule changes, that would all be reasonable content to put in there.
And
Well,
here's
what I would like to see is, and this is again extremely easy to set up. So when someone signs up for USPSA and pays their membership fees and gets their shooter number and all that good stuff, I would like to see when they click buy on that thing, it brings you to a page where you have a number of survey questions. Why are you interested in this? What do you know about this? Things like that. You start generating data from the base. And then 6 months down the road, those shooters get pushed another survey. How is it going? What have you done? What have you seen that's worked well? What have you not done? Would you like to take an RO course? Here's some information. Here's some educational bits. Do that on a biannual basis.
You're making
right?
far too much sense.
I know. I'll just shut the fuck up.
Dude, we got people on the board that don't know how to do Instagram Live, man. We're way short of that.
Well,
forgot
USPSA
we're
as
1,000
a
years in the
whole doesn't know how to do live anything. Period. But polls are easy. I did 2 polls, and it was this simple to collect data, and it's because somebody in USPSA said, "Show me the data," and I said, "Game on, bitch." And I fucking put the polls out. And guess what? I got the fucking data. It's split right down the middle on 2011's going into carry optics.
We gotta
Literally.
turn
Over 400
USPSA
votes
insights into this stuff.
Yeah, over 400 votes split literally right down the middle, give or take 1 or 2 in the swing vote, depending on what minute I check it, right? And then I put another poll out. I said, which move should USPSA make to improve the sport? Simple as that. A, allow single action only in carry optics. B, reduce major power factor to 150. C, eliminate major power factor altogether. And D, a limited optics division allowing single action only 9mm minor, right? Very simple.
So,
A, B, C, D. A got 75 votes to allow single action and carry optics. B, reduce major power factor to 150. Got 81 votes. C, eliminate major power factor altogether, 97 votes.
Yeah.
And D, limited optics division with a single action only guns, 9mm minor, got 101 votes.
I think eliminating major power factor would be really great for the sport. Unfortunately, it would also piss a lot of people off, and it would cost some people money. But I think that it would be good for the sport in every conceivable way.
it would be good for everyone except people with 40 caliber limited guns. For sure.
Yep, exactly. And 38 Super Comp open guns that would go, shit, I wish I had a 9. You know?
So that's
they
where-
it's not
so
that
that-
they can't make it work. They
It's
can't.
not a
It's like-
disadvantage, at least, though.
It's not
So
a
that's
disadvantage,
where-
but it's like, well, I got money tied up in this shit, and now my brass is worth nothing. You know, it's
So that's where you go, okay, why eliminate it? Why not make it safe, right? The problem with major is that currently, as it sits, if you don't want to have a 38 Super Comp and you don't want to have 40,
well,
and you want to have 9mm, right, to be readily available. And I'll tell you why I shoot 9. I shoot 9 because,
You don't want to win.
yeah, basically.
because you want to piss off Panda. You want to be.
Hey, look how many top 10 guys in
He's still
open
gonna
shot
beat
9.
you. It doesn't matter.
There was more 9mm major guys in the top 30 than there were 38 Super Comp guys, so blow me like a cup of hot soup.
Yeah,
Top 30 doesn't
five.
matter.
Top 5, I think there was 3 and 2, 3 9mm major, and I think 2 38 Super Comp. So boom, what are you gonna do? So anyway, when I practice with my open guns, I use 9 minor. I change my recoil spring and I run 9 minor just so I'm not doing so much significant damage to my open guns, because 9mm major is well over pressure spec, right? And I don't want to have to reload 38 Super Comp to practice the amount I do. It's fucking expensive, right? So I can reload 9 for relatively cheap, minor, and 90% of the rounds going through that gun are minor. But when I shoot majors, I shoot major power factor. But even that, it's well over pressure. It's not safe. So why not lower it to 150 power factor where plus P ammo will make it? Most plus P ammo will make 150 power factor, but off-the-shelf 9 won't. And if people want to load, they can load safely. It preserves 38 Super Comp. It preserves 40 cal in those divisions.
Yeah, I get it. It would cost people money, but other than the fact that it would cost people money, I actually think it would be a positive move for the sport. You wouldn't have to do anything with production because now production guns become limited guns, right? You just load the magazines full. You wouldn't have to do anything with single action and carry optics because now you could be at least very, very close. It would not be the same, but you could be very, very close with a 9mm minor slide ride 2011 being
shooting
close.
Plus P ammo.
No, I don't like that. I mean, that idea is fine. If I were to make the argument, I would just say smoke major power factor altogether. Let the 40 guys cry. But
yeah, and the 38 super guys.
The reason being, I have not heard anyone say that if they were to start a new sport today, that they would include major power factor in it because it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Name another shooting sport. Name another shooting sport with major power factor. Is there major power factor in 3-gun? No, there's heavy, right? And that's 308 and 45. That's a division for that.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It's like single. You
can load the 45 to puffball rounds and not make major and still shoot the sport, right? It doesn't matter. Sure. There's no chrono, right? Look at IDPA. Is there major power factor in IDPA?
No, they have a power
IDPA.
factor for every division, actually.
They have a low power factor. You can't go below this, right?
No, they have.
But they have a different one for every division. Like the division where people shoot 45s, it has like a profoundly higher power factor for that specific division, which in my opinion would make most sense for us too. Like you just do the same thing IPSC does. You drop open specifically power factor down to whatever level you want, then you leave everything else alone.
Yeah, leave limited where it's at. Fuck it.
Because I honestly understand that 40 caliber is obtuse in a practical sense, but I think the sportsman's aspect of shooting a gun that's hard to control is actually really interesting and is actually somewhat practical.
But it's an interesting challenge.
But here's the thing. With a well-tuned 2011 with
I wouldn't know.
All right, Mason, you're out of this
Neither
conversation.
would Trevor.
With a LOL, I'll let you shoot mine and let you cream your pants. With a well-tuned 2011, right, and hand-loaded 40, you can literally get the gun just as soft and cycle just as well as if you had a 9mm 2011 shooting off-the-shelf 9mm. The only difference is capacity. That's it.
Like
with 9, you get 3 extra rounds.
For a day, I wouldn't smoke it because I think a lot of people have a lot of money tied up into it. And Mason is right that it is a different challenge. It's a game mechanic that I don't like. I've still to this day have shot more matches and spent more time shooting limited than any other division. And I've just decided I don't like major power factor. I think it's dumb. I think it's dumb. It pains me as a skill set that I am not very good at and that I just think is a little bit stupid to watch somebody rip through a stage with a limited gun, do a 10 hit factor, and think to myself, I cannot outshoot them in terms of points. Like he shot 8 Charlies. What am I going to do? Shoot all alphas? Am I going to shoot all alphas and try and be within a half a second? It's like literally the game mechanic, just the way that the points lay out. It's like unless that dude shot like 5 deltas and 4 or 5 deltas or something, or dropped enough Charlies that it actually equates to a mic, you basically just have to race him. You basically just have to be faster.
That's a predicament that's unique to having iron sights, though. Like when you're shooting open, you look at how many like alphas, even the top 15 in open shoot. They shoot way more alphas than people shooting limited by virtue of the fact it's easy to get the points with a single action trigger and a dot. And that's also another situation where the stage design issues are hurting us a lot, because when the average factor is 8 or more, you pretty much can't shoot enough Charlies to hurt your score.
Yeah, it's just like,
limited.
hey man, you can aim your ass off and shoot more alphas if you want, but no, you actually should go a half second fucking faster. That's what you should actually do.
So that's where I bring it into lower major power factor to 150, right? If you want to keep around, if you don't want to piss off the open guys and limited guys, drop power factor to 150, and that settles the safe debate for there. And then if guys want to shoot a SIG or a fucking Canic or 2011 and they want to shoot 9mm and not be at a significant disadvantage, then you have a high cap optics, high cap irons, low cap optics, low cap irons.
Yeah, we need
and
fewer
it's
divisions.
It's all 9mm and go from there.
The moral of the story, I think, we need fewer divisions with less restrictive rule sets for the guns in those divisions, because the modifications don't fucking matter. They don't matter. I don't think action type matters anymore. I think it did at one point. And if it does matter, it matters very little.
So how about this?
If it does matter, it matters very little. I think it'd be great to see the sport have 4 or 5 divisions total, not 8. 4 or 5 divisions total, a couple major power factor, and then a handful of minor power factor only. And then just make the rule set very inclusive of the guns and let people shoot what they want to shoot. And if that turns it into a race for, you have to have an $8,000 limited gun with a 1.5 pound trigger. No, you don't. Look at Nationals results. No, you don't. Now, could Mason have won by an extra 0.5% or an extra percent? Maybe, if he had a $8,000 limited gun with a 1.5 pound trigger. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It was good enough to win, wasn't it? Like, obviously, it doesn't make much difference. If it did make much difference, you would have shooters.
People at the bottom buy.
That's the best gun you
gear
can have
element.
until October. SIG 320.
What do I not know?
Sounds like you know everything. It's objectively the best gun, at least until October. For
No,
little.
I mean, hey,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Is it doesn't
At
matter.
the end of the
so why do we
day,
pretend that it matters.
Yeah, the shooter is the shooter. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, I think
We understand this. Everyone else does. The people getting into it, the people that still really find guns, certain types of guns, certain actions, intriguing, interesting, and fun, those people will always buy into whatever is marketed better, right? And if you are told that a single action trigger is going to be better, it's going to help you be better, they are going to continue to buy this. They're going to continue to tell all of their friends, the majority of people, gun owners, people at the lower level, that you're going to continue to see that culture.
I shot a Canic forever until I shot a 2011 and thought, ooh, that feels nice. I like it. And then I still, at the time, was like, I don't want to spend that much money. And then just eventually I was like, hey, I'm going to buy one just to have one. And I'm still going to shoot my Canic. And then I got it and was like, hey, let's check this out. And then shot limited, liked it, and went to limited.
Who dictates the divisions? Tom's got a question. That's an excellent question. Does anyone know? Somebody tell me.
Not
this.
the people participating or not.
I would love to know this. Someone please explain this to me.
Yeah. But here's my, if I was, everyone's done that if I'm king for the day. If I'm king for the day, here's what I'm going to do. Are you ready?
Oh, boy.
Here we go.
I'm going to scrap major power factor altogether, move everything to major scoring, 9mm, whatever the fuck you want to shoot. Scrap all the not non-important, but all the divisions that don't have the same participation, that are kind of dying, limited 10, single stack, revolver. Revolver shouldn't even be a thing, but you can still shoot your revolver, but here's how it's going to work. You have open, or you have race gun optics, race gun iron sights, right? And then you have, or I guess you could, race gun open, race gun iron sights, and then you can do whatever you want from there. Low cap irons, low cap iron, or low cap optics, and figure it out. So low cap optics and low cap irons are production guns out of the box. No crazy, super awesome modifications. 10 rounds. Figure it out, and then race gun optics, race gun irons. Run what you brung. Bring anything you want. Go. Have some fun.
Hang on,
and then you have open at the top.
So you said you're going to get rid of major altogether, move everything to major scoring.
Everything to major scoring.
I'm a little minor scoring.
I'm a little lost on why we need to move that. If we're going to change it, why don't we just move it all to even numbers and get rid of odd numbers? Because then everything is valued the same, right? Just do 10, or do 20, 10, just find some even numbers. I don't understand why we would move everything to major. I'm confused.
What do you mean?
So you're saying you're going to get rid of major scoring?
Major is dumb in high factor stages. That's what Jim's saying. So that's a stupid thing to do for all divisions.
Well, then move it to minor scoring. Whatever.
Minor scoring.
Move it to minor scoring. One scoring for everything.
Okay, one scoring. That's what I want to understand. I just want to understand why you're saying get rid of a scoring method, but make everything that method. I was a little bit lost there.
No. All right. Yeah. Make one scoring method.
I totally disagree. I think major versus minor paints a really interesting disparity between different divisions. And it's not that major versus minor is truly a question of what's more competitive within any one division, even single stack. It's obvious that major is better. But the fact that, shooting limited, you can be reckless as hell, or, shooting production, you have to be, or shooting carry optics, you have to be careful. Like, that's what makes those divisions more interesting than anything to me. Is the specific nuances of how you have to optimize your score based on
a huge part of the sport.
Limitations of what you can do.
It's a huge part of the scoring differences, the challenging differences. There definitely needs to be a difference there.
So then drop power factor to 150. Keep open and limited how they are.
That's a way more reasonable solution. Dropping the power factor.
Drop power factor to 150. All right, drop power factor to 150. Open and limited stay where they're at, and then you have a low cap iron, low cap optic, high cap iron, high cap optic, run what you brung, minor power factor, no comps, no slide right, no frame mounted dots. Go from there.
Yeah, I think it's a way more reasonable solution to say drop based on
you have 6 divisions.
Significant engineering studies.
Are you drinking milk out of the carton? What a fucking degenerate. I love it. So
strong, man.
So what do you think about this, right? Open and limited, stay where they're at, drop power factor to 150 power factor. You can still have major scoring versus minor scoring. But then you go low cap irons, low cap optics, production style guns, 10 rounds. Then you have high cap irons, high cap optics, run what you brung, no comps, no frame mounted dots, minor scoring.
All right.
Or do you want to go major scoring for that? Just keep low cap minor and high cap major.
The implication of race guns is you're going to race, bro.
But you're wanting open and limited to stay high cap, so why have open and limited if you're going to have 2 other iron and optic low cap?
If it was up to me, there would be production and production optics would be minor, actually production, 15, either 10 or 15 rounds, and then open and limited, drop the required power factor to make major to a safe level and leave those otherwise the way they are.
So you just
I'm gonna say my proposal again because you guys are all skirting right around it anyway. Leave open and limited alone. Leave them alone.
But change major and lower.
Leave carry optics alone, except allow any action type you want. Leave production alone, except make it high cap. Again, allow any action type you want, and then combine all the low cap divisions into one low cap division, 10 round minor, 8 round major. 5
Mason's
divisions.
about to throw his milk
5 divisions.
at the screen.
Well, hold up. Run through that one more time. I like that.
Leave open
Bro, it's
and
been a
limited.
long day. You know I hate the Eagles.
Leave open and limited alone. Leave them alone. So you have to understand my stance that action type doesn't matter. Some people disagree. That's just my.
I 100% agree with you. That's why I'm intrigued by what you're pitching right now.
But you still want to drop major power factor to 150.
Well, no, I don't care about that.
Let's move past that.
It's safer.
Let's just
it's
talk
safer
about
for the guns, but that's fine.
Screw the engineering conversation. Let's talk about this.
Okay. 5 divisions. Okay, revolver goes away. Bye bye revolver. It's gone.
Thank you.
Or they can shoot if they want. I don't care, but they don't get their own division. So 5
This
divisions.
is getting real Abbott and Costello here, guys.
Yeah. 5 divisions, open and limited stay the same. Carry optics stays the same except for the addition of any action type you want. Doesn't matter. Production goes high cap, be it 15 rounds or flush fit mags or 140s. I don't really give a shit. And you allow any action type as well. Double stacks don't get magwells, right? Double stacks don't get magwells. And then you have one combined low cap division. Double stacks don't get magwells. Single stacks do get magwells. 10 round minor, 8 round major.
What?
Does that make sense?
No, everything you're saying is making sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that made perfect sense. Has anyone put this stuff like in a formalized, if you were going to vote on the way to restructure some divisions, has anyone ever written this stuff down? I understand we all talk about this online and we all vent about it, and that's all well and good.
So why would you write it down if you can just talk about it for 2 hours on the internet?
That's an excellent point. Thank you. Great point.
Exactly. Well, I know that proposals have been put in front of the board for various things, like recently, just the other day, the major power factor debate got put in front of the board. It got unanimously voted down, right? So who's to say you don't put these these division changes on paper and put them in front of the board, and they don't go, okay, well, that's stupid. We're not going to do that, just like they normally do.
That. We talk about surveys. We talk about collecting data. We talk about disseminating information through a more democratized means. What about if instead of all that, right, you basically did division changes by referendum, but you required people to basically justify what they're doing it by either only giving them access to voting rights if they understand basically the implications of what they're voting on. Like if you say, you know, we're voting on, hey, should SAO guns be allowed in CO? If you just put yes, no, like it's not going to, I mean, like you're relying on people doing the due diligence of like having a properly assembled, informed opinion. But most people are going to say yes if they have a gun that would compete in that division, and no if they already shoot carry optics. But if you said, hey, this is the implication of doing that based on how it's going to affect who participates in the division, then that might be a different solution.
You'd have to have a sub-survey before the survey where the person answering the
before
survey
you even are allowed to vote on it.
I think you have to define
what they understand, and then they can take the survey.
You have to define what makes divisions interesting. Like, I don't think action type makes a division interesting. That's why, to me, it doesn't matter. I think limited nationals have proven that multiple years. It's like action type doesn't matter. So I don't think that it should really. I guess I just don't think that it should matter. I think we need to define what makes a division interesting. Like, I think iron sights and minor scoring is interesting. I don't really care about capacity so much, other than the market has proven, like people have proven with their participation, that they like high cap. And you could fix that by changing stage design rules. That is absolutely a good argument and a good idea. But what has been proven since carry optics and PCC became a thing is that people want to shoot 9mm and they want more rounds in the gun.
Yep.
I think that line of thinking is bound to lead you to a more sensible solution. Basically say, what's the challenge within each division based on, you know, how matches are constructed and how basically, and this is the sort of shit you could ask top competitors too. Like, you know, if you're trying to say, how can I characterize the difference between limited and open? The easiest way to do it would be to ask people that know, right? And that line of thinking is more likely to lead you to a sensible, you know, division setup than is just trying to decide how to shoehorn more and more people into the sport based on who has what gun.
Yep. You're right. So, asking people to characterize in more than just a yes or no response is going to give you a way higher degree of uncertainty in that data. Otherwise, it's just going to be garbage data and you just throw it away.
Why is a division interesting? So I would argue that like open and limited are interesting. Open and limited are interesting for the people that like them. I'm not one of those people, but for the people that like them, they like the guns that they shoot and they like major power factor and high capacity, and those divisions are still doing well. I wouldn't fuck with them. I think carry optics obviously is doing really, really well, right? And I don't think action type matters, but you could make an argument that maybe for some people it does matter. Okay, fine. I wouldn't hardline on that. What makes production interesting? I don't personally think that 10 rounds makes production super interesting. I think iron sights and minor scoring makes production super interesting. So I would argue that you could boost participation in it and then boost the level of competition in it by including something that other people do fairly unanimously find more advantageous and just more fun that they want to participate in, which is more rounds in the gun. And then there are going to be people that either because of their state or because of just their interest or the gun that they love to shoot, a single stack, they find low cap interesting. And there is a good balance, and it has proven to be, it's proven to be at least interesting as a debate, you know, whether or not you would rather shoot a 10-round minor for a particular match or 8-round major. So lump all that shit together, because again, I go off of the basis of action type doesn't matter. Like for me personally, in my hands, it just doesn't really make a difference. So to me, it's like, well, why do we draw these stupid lines based on action type? 20 years ago, it did matter, and it doesn't anymore because the aftermarket has solved that problem. That would be my argument. So I just say 5 divisions. 5 division gets us 2 optics divisions and 3 iron sight divisions. It includes all the guns, all the action type. You have major scoring and minor scoring, and it takes care of the single stackers, and it takes care of the people in commie states. It takes care of everyone for 5 divisions.
Kenny, you are making so much sense that it's making Mason play with his emotional support kitty.
It's just, I think, so back to my question that didn't really...
The fucking nice kitty!
Is what are the 2 biggest issues? I think the biggest issue with USPSA HQ is that we have representatives that don't actually represent the members. They don't listen. That to me is the biggest issue with USPSA
100%.
HQ. And then the biggest issue on the ground at matches to me, because like I said, and maybe I am the anomaly that I have really good ROs around me, which hallelujah, I'm glad I do. The biggest issue I see is too many fucking divisions. Watered down competition, too many divisions. I would gut it to 5.
I'm very excited to see this year because we're going to see a lot of folks shooting carry optics with the standalone nationals. I do think it's kind of dumb that they have a standalone nationals, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens when you have a very, very popular division and no one else has anything better to do.
Yeah. Kenny, you forgot about PCC.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Well, you're right. I did forget about PCC. They're their own thing. People that like it, like it. It doesn't seem to have any issues to me. So I guess we have 6. You're right. Yep.
Make it major and make it 15 rounds. I think that's what the people want, right?
Limit it to 32 rounds.
Yeah, 32 rounds. Boudreaux said that earlier. So, like, IPSC, don't they have a 32 round limit on?
Dude, nobody shooting PCC is interested in the challenge, all right?
Right. Yeah, we'll move past this. Thank you.
Max Leograndis is putting a hit on you right now. There is a Serbian death squad on their way to your house right now via Max Leograndis.
So I'm super interested, and I won't be defensive about it because I think there's a lot of good ideas. What does anybody dislike about the proposal that I have? Does anybody dislike it for any reason?
I'm not a fan of leaving production the way it is. I think if you're gonna do, mess around with production, you should shoehorn it into the low cap division you're describing and make it actually required to be production. And I like the idea of production and carry optics being more aligned as well.
Production and production optics.
Yeah.
So that was low cap optics, low cap irons, high cap optics, high cap irons. Keep limited the way it is. Keep open the way it is. Drop the power factor, and go from there.
Yeah,
it's pretty straightforward.
I think there's a lot of ways to do it, and I think that we really need fewer divisions. And I think that, that's just I just think that's the number one issue on the ground that I see is just it's so fucking watered down, and it just makes everybody. I don't know. At least what I see is there's tons of people going to carry optics, which is cool. It is a fun division. I don't particularly like it, but it's sad.
You have a good point. You have a very good point. Saturation devalues high levels of competition.
There's a lot of smart ways to do it, but I think that problem needs to be seen as a problem and should have some solution set forth that we just have too many divisions. And particularly, I think we have too many iron sight divisions. We have 5 iron sight divisions, for them accounting for like 30 to 40% of most major match attendance, which is just really small potatoes.
That's why I think you have 3 iron sight divisions and 3 optic divisions, and then you have PCC in their own thing, but they're their own thing anyway, right? 3 and 3, they're relatively similar, right? Low cap iron, low cap optics. Now you get to take the 10-round guys. They get to compete with an optic against iron sights, production gun out of the box, keep it old school like it was. And then if you want to trick your gun out and go high cap, then you have high cap irons, high cap optics. Do whatever you want. Run what you brung. No compensators, no frame mounted dots. Have some fun. Magwell's allowed. Get crazy with it. And then you have open and limited, the OG divisions the same way they are, 150 power factor, and then PCC gets to do whatever the fuck they want because they've been doing that anyway.
So I'm gonna drop off here, but I would really love for some of these things. There's some great ideas here for sure. I would love for some of these to be formally, written down and dropped in the hands. I'm sure that people already have dropped in the hands of the folks that are running for president. And I would love to see some form of survey put out to the competitors to just kind of understand where all the competitors' heads are at on this stuff, so we can put a formalized vote on divisions to the shooters.
Well, the good thing is there's 2 area directors and a couple presidential nominees on here right now. So
yeah,
hopefully they're
listening,
commenting
and listening to all this stuff. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing where this goes. But appreciate the time, guys.
Yeah, you drop off. Love your face. Thank you for coming on. We're gonna add somebody else.
Thanks, guys.
All right, who should we add? We got Tom Castro. We got Jay Beal. We got Matt Hopkins.
If Jay gives a shit, you should add Jay.
Jay, I'm going to try to add you. Get on here if you even care about talking about this, because you're really intelligent, and I like you. And you know how to trim a goat hoof to perfection. If you guys don't know, he has a TikTok, and he trims goat hoofs for follows. It's pretty awesome. If he even cares about getting on here. Jay, do you not want to get on here, dude? I invited you. Come on, dude. Oh, we might have to pull the trigger on Jay. I don't know if Jay wants a piece.
Get Hoppy in here.
You think Hoppy would join?
I don't know. Invite him.
Well, let's see here. Oh, hold on. Something's getting weird. Oh, there we go. All right, let's see if Hoppy wants to get in here. I invited him. Ooh, we've got Leighton in here too. Yeah, Jay is unable to join. Let's see if Hoppy jumps in. If Hoppy doesn't jump in, we'll try to get Leighton. Come on, Hop. All right, in the meantime, Mason.
Yep.
What do you honestly think about lowering power factor to a safe point? Because I don't think we covered that earlier. We just kind of grazed over it.
I don't care about that.
I
think it's a good idea for open, just based on out there. But I don't really care. I don't shoot open, so I'm not a good person to ask. But it seems like a lot of people that do shoot open think it's a good idea. So that means it's probably a good idea, at least for that division. Yeah. I, as someone who doesn't shoot a lot of limited, but shoots limited, I like that the guns are fairly hard to control, generally speaking. And I would not want to see a situation where, everyone who's shooting limited as a dedicated effort that has a 40 caliber gun is boned.
I agree.
Out of being able to use their gun. That would be really, really bad for that. That division's already kind of starting to perform not as well as it used to, just based on the fact that 40 cal is so unpopular. And I think long term, maybe it would save it, but short term, it would hurt it a lot.
Well, if you were to allow 9mm in limited to make major, you would have a lot of upset 40 cal shooters as well.
Yeah, that's why I say leave them how they are. Open and limited, just leave them. Just lower the power factor.
Well, but if you lowered the power, well, I guess there is a rule. I guess
there is a rule
have
that
to be 0.4 or greater diameter.
Yeah,
so
it
yes, you could leave it alone.
Minimum caliber for major or whatever, and that would be the way to do it.
Yeah. Hopkins said I'm doing chores. Okay. And then once you lower the power factor, then you do what you want with the rest of the divisions. Hey, what's going on, bud? You requested to join. Thank God. Nobody else requested to join.
What's up, Mason?
All right, so what do you think about this shit show? Give us your opinion. We've been talking at length, and we're already talked out. Nobody wants to hear from us.
I've watched the whole thing, but the biggest thing for me that I really like is production irons and carry optics with like the 10 rounds, just bone stock gun. I know there's the argument of people that whatever company is going to come out with the hottest, newest fucking thing like CZ did, or SIG's coming out with stuff now. I think that just comes down to like a competition like realm where if you're a heavy competitor, like you're probably going to get the hottest, newest thing as it is, right? If you're a new guy coming in, you're probably going to come in with a Glock 34 or Glock 19 and raw dog your way through, you know, some stages. And the biggest thing for me is like, I really like the production 10 for like irons and carry optics, and then do like a limited, however many rounds you want, major power factor only, which is where I like the 150 power factor. I'll come back to that in a second, but yeah, just do like a limited irons and carry optics. I really like that because you still have the divisional like differences, right? You can have a magwell, single action, whatever you want. Keep open. Those fuckers can fuck off.
Hey.
But the thing I really like is like, I really want a checkmate, and I want to shoot a checkmate, but power factor freaks me out for 9 major.
It should.
To shoot 135s.
That's fair. I told Kaylee to bring it in May when you come, but like that's the only thing that I probably like the most is just lowering the power factor, because if you do and you keep power factors in a sense, I think that just makes you still have that risk reward difference in a sense, right?
Yeah. I like where your head's at. So I can't let this comment go. I can't. Somebody just destroyed it. Somebody said this horse is dead. Let's move on. New topic. Kill one, fuck one, marry one. Rakazel Latham Strader. That's the greatest comment you could possibly have put. Hey, Faust9057. If you're watching this, send me a DM and say I'm the guy who made you laugh with the fuck one, marry one, kill one comment. I'm sending you a shirt and some goodies. That made me giggle. You're getting some free shit, my friend. I love it. Oh no, but that I like where your head's at. I like where your
My
head's
biggest
at.
thing is like, I like the inclusiveness of like having more divisions in a sense. So I don't see it as being more divisions. I see it being a split in the division, right? Or production, 10 rounds, or if that changes. But just doing like irons, carry optics, limited irons, carry optics, open, you can stay over there. PCC, you can really stay over there. But I just like that. Like you guys said, you know, you don't see a lot of revolver shooters. I shot a local tier 1 this weekend, and my buddy was the only single stack guy on practice score out of like 40 people. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's one production guy as well. So it's like, clearly there is something missing.
Yeah, there is. And I think when you make it low cap iron optic, high cap iron optic, leave open and limited 40 cal because there's a lot of money wrapped up in those divisions, but lower the power factor. When you do that, when you take low cap iron optic and that adds a whole new aspect to the shooting, right? How much of a difference does a dot actually make, right? And can you chase the dot guys with irons and blah, 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 and bounce back and forth? And on top of that, really, in reality, you can have 4 guns, or you can have 4 divisions shot by 1 gun.
Yep.
You can mix it up so much. You can go right now and you can go buy a SIG 320 and you can shoot all 4 of those divisions and be very, very, very competitive.
Can
And
you
if you're
150 with factor without a compensator, like safely? Like what would I would imagine that would beat the hell out of guns.
it'll beat the shit out of the gun, which will deter people. That's why 150 is such a good number. Because to make 150, in reality, you're going to make 155. You're going to want to have that cushion. It's just like right now, 165. Nobody keeps their power factor that low. They're all shooting 170 to 172, sometimes 175. So you're going to have to shoot plus P or hand-loaded ammo to make that power factor. And with a non-compensated gun, it's going to beat the shit out of the gun, and you're just not going to want to do it. So, and the reward there is kind of like, that's where I think major power factor, you keep it in open and limited, but in order for it to be a thing, limited, like you said, has a minimum caliber size. So you can't really even shoot 9mm major in limited, period, right? And then open, it just makes it safe for open. And then you have your minor divisions being low cap iron optic, high cap iron optic. Run what you brung, 9mm guns, irons, or optics. In the high cap divisions, get magwells.
The one question I was going to ask is, do you think for limited high cap carry optics or irons, would you keep like major power factor, or would you let it be either or?
Minor only. For the low cap iron optic, high cap iron optic, minor only. The only way to get major power factor is to shoot open or limited with a 40 cal.
Well, I guess so. That's my thing is I shoot 40 limited with a TSO. The biggest thing for me is that how does that relate to the guys that would shoot irons but maybe a minor and limited, right? Or even like the carry optics guys where they would shoot more minor usually, but if we bump it down to 150, I feel like some of those carry optics guys would load a little hotter.
In those divisions, there is no major scoring.
Okay, that's fair. So it doesn't.
You cannot shoot major in those divisions. You can load for major if you want to be dumb. Okay, Nick Walden had a good question. Why not just shoot 38 Super if you guys are worried about 9 major? Open is supposed to be the Formula One. Formula One cars pushing the limits. That's what separates from everything else. Here's why. 38 Super Comp and 9 major are super rough on these guns in major, right? I shoot the piss out of these guns, and I practice a lot. That means a lot of live fire ammo. Now, I don't get ammo for free. I can shoot 9 minor through that gun in practice. I can go and I can buy off-the-shelf 9 minor, buy it in bulk for cheap as shit, and I can go practice with that gun, switch out the recoil spring, and I can practice with minor in that gun. It's safer on the gun. It doesn't beat the shit out of the gun. That open gun has over 130,000 rounds on it. And thank God my V2's on the way because it is beat. But it probably only has 15,000 rounds worth of major power factor ammo through it. That's why it's lasted as long as it has without the issues, right? But if I have 38 Super Comp, there's no saving money. Powder doesn't really save money, right? So you still have to use 38 Super Comp brass, which is the expensive part.
I think the real difference is the difference in philosophy between you and Nick at the moment is realizing that the power aspect of DVC is no longer really relevant in the minds of most people based on what we know about how ballistics work.
Yeah.
In F1, there's essentially no rules, right, within reason as far as what you can strap onto the car to make it as fast as possible and controllable as possible.
But it has to be safe.
So it's not quite the same equivalence where we're not truly trying to balance speed, power, and accuracy all equally because we've pretty much decided power is irrelevant.
Yeah,
if
and
were right, then you would be right. Like it would be if it was truly equal, it wouldn't just be everyone's push scrape the bottom of the floor. It'd be if you get another like right, but it's not like that.
Tom, your shit is making it echo. So I had a guy say the same Formula One thing in a DM. He said, well, it's supposed to be like Formula One. That'd be like Formula One saying, oh, you have to run this engine that is less powerful because the other engines aren't reliable. I said, no, that's not what it's like at all. What it's like is if Formula One came out and said, hey, you can run 2 tires, right? One is $1 million a set. One is $1,000 a set. Both have the equal grip, but one spontaneously explodes. Like, that's basically what it's fucking like. It's dumb. They should just come out with one set that's safe, that maybe has a little less grip, but in reality, I've actually given that gun to people with major ammo and minor ammo and said, shoot them back to back and tell me if there's a significant difference, not in the recoil impulse in the hand, but how the dot tracks and how the gun cycles. And most of them go, it's a little snappier feeling in my hand when I shoot major, but in the difference in dot tracking is not significant. And it's at 150 power factor. It works fine. The guns engineering wise are just as capable of running just as fast and just as flat at 150 power factor, but it not blow up.
Do you feel like it's more of a thing for open guys that shoot a 9 major than limited guys that shoot 40?
100%. 100%. That's why like, and it's only going to make limited that much more fun, really, because now you can load your ammo super fucking soft and still make major and go from there, but you're not scrapping 40 altogether.
Do you think if they do like the IDPA route where open is a specific power factor where their major is 150, but then limited stays at 165?
You could. IPSC did it. IPSC is 175 for limited, or 170 for limited.
Of doing something similar to that, at least dropping. If the concern is that the tires are going to explode and the spectators are going to die, then I'm in favor of stipulating that you just use slower cars to not blow up the tires. But I think limited, that's not really a problem. And 165 is a pretty agreeable solution to maintain the interesting sportsman's aspects of that.
Yeah, leave limited at 165 because there's no safety concern for limited guys whatsoever. It works fine. And then drop the open power factor to 150. Easy solution right there. Boom. What do you think, Tom? You look pissed.
No, not dude. I coached all day today, and then I had to coach my kid's softball game, so I'm wiped out. But I wanted to get on here for a couple things. One, Mason, is that your cat's ass constantly going in front of you where you're smacking it? Like every time I see like this thing like go across, I'm like, what the f is that, dude? Like it's a cat. There it is. All right, okay, that's what I thought it was.
That's one fucking nice kitty right there, boss.
So a couple different things because I've been listening for a little while. The thing with the where if we get rid of 40 and people are going to be pissed, I hate to tell you, but everybody buys new guns every time a new division happens. Everybody had this, oh man, carry optics now. I got to bet a red dot. I got to buy a red dot. I got to buy a new gun. Now everybody's bought a red dot, right? Nobody gives a shit about buying new guns in this sport. Nobody's going to care if 40 goes away in the long run because everyone will just adjust to not shooting 40 anymore. Everybody just makes adjustments because we don't really make decisions on what we do anyway in this sport, right? We get told this is what's allowed and this. Okay, I made a comment earlier about the thumb rest. The thumb rest for a 9 minor carry optics gun is now allowed. What? Right? So like when you said something about stock division, who's going to police that? Who's going to tear somebody's gun apart and watch it and look and say, hey.
If you set a tight standard that is pretty close to factory guns, it's actually pretty easy to enforce. It was the incompetence of one person that opened the floodgates and made this just get more and more out of hand.
Yep.
So what is considered a stock gun? Are they allowed to put a trigger job in it?
To me, it's stock. Anything you can see on the outside has to be stock except for grip texturing.
Okay, so I guess the other problem, the reason I say I could see a problem there is because the reason they changed the rules for put your gear wherever you want, because we couldn't get ROs to understand that what the hips were. And, well, let me rephrase that. We could. You could get some to do it, but then you had some that were like, well, looks good to me, bro. Or you had some that it was legal and they were like, it's too far forward. I'm like, this is my hip bone. The gun's behind my hip bone. They're taking cards out and checking the width of how far away the thing. You know what I mean? You have ROs that don't know the rules. Those are the ones that are enforcing it. You're not getting a range master to walk to every shooter and enforce it. That's kind of the issue I see in the stock. Do you know how many people don't know what a stock Glock trigger looks like?
No, I mean, when it comes to trigger and stuff, I don't really think anyone cares, right? If I'm going to shoot a gun in competition, I want the trigger to be cool. But I don't want a shit ton of slide cuts and weights on the fucking front and all that other shit.
But dude, there goes the stock. But there goes the stock then. If you change the trigger, you instantly eliminate anything stock because a trigger is the number one thing we all want as competitive shooters, right? So that means you just eliminated stock completely. It's not even close to stock. If you can pay $100 for a trigger.
Personally, I want JJ Ricaz's physique, but hey, that's just me.
I think
dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, I saw him today at the range. He's sexy.
From the outside is way closer to stock than what we call a production gun right now, and that's good enough.
I don't disagree.
You're not going to be able to stop people from fucking with the internals of the gun because you can take a Glock and leave the stock trigger shoe and change all the internals, and guess what? You have an advantage.
It doesn't have to be every single time someone like uses a race hammer in their gun, they get caught 100% of the time, or the sport is going to cease to exist. We know that's probably not the case. If you really wanted it to be that way, you could solve it by using competitor cards and by having ROs that are properly trained. But it ultimately, it only has to be disincentivized to the point that no one is going to cheat on purpose.
Yeah, like I don't. So have you seen those like Cajun Gunworks CZs that are fucking all tricked out and have weights on the front and brass grips and all this other bullshit? And they're 59 ounces and whatever. That's what you don't want in production. Now, if some dude rolls up and if he has a SIG X5 Legion and it has a trigger job, cool. I don't give it. Yeah, like that. That's stupid. I mean, it's delicious, but stupid.
All right. So hold on. So Mason is, a SIG guy. He shoots SIG. He's sponsored by SIG. If those guys come out with a competition gun that's already pre-tricked out, is that considered a stock gun?
It's a stock gun. That drives.
It's been completely tricked out. Hold on a second. It's been completely tricked out from the factory. But if I go and buy a Glock and they don't have a factory, they're not focused on competition and they just have a stock gun, what does that mean? That's not the same gun. Like the X5 Legion.
You have to decide what's more important. You have to decide what's more important. The ability for anyone to buy any gun and make it as ideal as possible and compete with that, or the idea that we're trying to encourage people to use ostensibly factory guns, right? If you really don't like that, the solution is don't allow that gun on the list.
Yeah, there's a production gun list. If a new gun comes out, it has to be on the list, right?
Right, and I think at this point, right, it would definitely, if you rolled it back, to be plus 4 ounces from the list weight, which is what it used to be for the longest time, there would still obviously be guns that are going to rise to the top, like, debatably, Koenigs, Glock 34s, Shadow 2s, Stock 2s, and SIGs and Walthers are all still going to be the gun, generally speaking, that people use. But that's still way closer to being a factory gun, that people can buy and compete with, than is taking a Glock 17 and literally tripling the weight of it to get to the weight limit.
I just see enforcement being the problem, not so much that, again, you have to know who's going to do the enforcement. You have to have a special team of enforcement, maybe, like to where
at Chrono.
I mean, listen, we have people getting DQ'd from matches because a guy pulled out a tape measure and 6 inches. He was 6 inches farther than a berm. So 6 foot 6 inches, he got DQ'd. You're going to have a guy run around and start DQing people because they don't think it's the proper trigger? That's the problem, right? Who's going to be our deciding factor?
The Chrono guys. The 2 guys that you put at Chrono for a fucking major need to be versed in what the guns are.
Dude, the same Chrono guys that gave someone 7 tries to pass Chrono?
Well, that's where...
Yeah, good luck with that.
See, that's where you as a competitor need to go to the MD and say, hey, this is unacceptable. That RO needs to be reprimanded. The shooters have to police the police at some point.
Bro, Mason has been one of the most outspoken professional shooters or top shooters about where the brass doesn't listen to us. And you're telling me that if we walked up and said that guy's doing something wrong, the guy that was in charge of letting that go was one of our brass. Okay? The guy that was in charge of allowing that to happen was one of our area directors, family members. Dude, this is the problem. We don't have anything to really, it's like arbitration, right? Okay, here's my $100. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a free donation.
I agree the process should be fixed, but there's really nothing you can do other than elect people that you think have their heart in the right place.
At the end of the day, you got to elect the right people. And by electing the right people, those problems will iron themselves out as long as you're being... Listen, if you're at a match, right, and something wrong happens, be fucking vocal about it, right? And scream from the mountaintops, this is fucked. And
especially if it's cheating,
right? Or if it's... If an RO at a chrono stage let something like that happen, you need to be the one going, no, this is fucked. That's not fair. Here's why it's not fair. This is what should have been, and blurt it out, and it'll get on the interwebs, and people will talk, and it'll get fixed in the next election or in the next match, whatever. Right? Like, just
And it also doesn't hurt if you cyberbully the people that are cheating.
True. Yeah. We have now there's honestly, there's meme pages where I'm like, fuck, I hope I never end up on one of those, dude.
man,
There's
that's
some
awesome.
savage ones. We can
He's almost
cyberbully them.
cyberbully him.
Yeah. We can get USPSA Insights, whoever the hell that is, on it. Just send them a DM. I'm sure they'll go down that rabbit hole.
I mean, dude, to me, that's the biggest concern that I have is that who's going to enforce it, right? I agree. I've been in this for 4 years, going into 4 years, and I started off with a stock gun, and I don't own a stock pistol now. I mean, there's nothing stock about anything I own, and I like it better because I make it what I want. But if I was to take Plastic Fantastic Canic and shoot it, it's the same gun, right? Whether I've tricked it out or not. It just doesn't have the little things that I wanted added to it, right? Like the weight is a great example. If I shoot a Glock or a Canic, they're very similar. But if I picked up an X5 that has all the weight already added to it from the factory, it's a totally different experience between those 3 guns. And they're considered stock guns. If you look at a SIG, the grip on an X5, there's a damn magwell on that gun. Without a magwell, right? That has a magwell the way that's built. The new rivals from Canic have a magwell on them. Look at a Glock. No, there's no magwell built into that firearm in factory mode, right?
Well,
that's why.
Go ahead.
No, listen. I'm saying factory is fine. I'm not saying that, but you're still not looking at even numbers when a company like SIG, who's committed to building competition guns, and then you have another company that's not committed to it. How can you say that's stock? You see what I'm saying?
I think you could do a lot to rectify the issue by rolling back the production rules, and whatever divisions you decide you want to comply with it. If I have my way, prod and prod optics would be the same, essentially the same.
Yep.
You do factory from the outside, except for grip texturing. Trigger weight limit at whatever you decide you want to set it at. And then other than that, plus 4 ounces from the list weight. That's like, you can comply with that pretty easily without, you don't have to know that much to avoid getting DQ'd on accident, just violating the rules in good faith. You can do a little bit of stuff to your gun and still shoot a division where you're shooting essentially a stock gun. And I do believe if you did that, at least to production, you would see a resurgence in that division. It doesn't help that stage design has really gotten out of hand, but I do think if production was actually production again, I do think you'd see a lot of people go back to shooting it.
So that's
trigger weight was tested at Chrono. I'm sorry, trigger weight's tested at Chrono. Every gun gets tested.
Yeah, that would be the easiest way to do it. That would be the most consistent with how we do everything else.
Yeah. And I think that's where if you go production optics, production irons, production guns on the production list with these restrictions, and then you have high cap irons, high cap carry optic or high cap optics. If you want to go and trick your gun out to the 9s and fill your mags all the way up, that's the place for you, right? But if you want to shoot production with production style rules and low capacity, then you go down there.
Maybe the 5 other people that want production to be stock again. Well, there's a lot of people that used to shoot production back when it was actually production. I think there's a lot more than 5 of us. Just saying.
Yeah, I got a lot of DMs about could give 2 fucks about your 2011. I want production to be great again. I got a lot of those. So that was the point in this whole deal so what started all of this is I was talking to a couple of area directors. And I said, hey, people want these changes. And they said, we don't know because there's no data. So how are we going to make those changes without knowing what the people want? And I said, okay, well, how about I just find out, right? So I put out some polls. Those polls turned into, well, let's hear from the people. Well, all right, fuck it. Here we are, right? We've had a couple people on that seem to kind of want the same thing, but have fundamental differences in their opinions. But the main thing is the current state is not where everyone wants to be. Can we agree on that? Yeah. There's things about the current way things are that not everyone's happy with.
As a native production shooter, I'm comfortable with the fact that, I might not have to have the most ideal scenario for my gun to fall into, and I'll still be, also as a limited shooter for that matter, I'm okay that my gun may not perfectly fit into what's permitted within the rules, and I'm still going to go compete.
Exactly.
But it does seem like there's a lot of people that are dissatisfied with the way the rules are structured or with the way the sport has sort of gone culturally, just based on either lack of participation in their division or modifications that have happened to the divisions they used to shoot. That's for sure.
Yeah, so let's trim the fat on the divisions, make them more competitive, make them more inclusive, and get that going. I want to be able to go to my local gun range and some guy shooting at a bay next to me goes, "Hey, that's pretty cool. What are you doing?" Tell him about it, and him not have to either one, go shoot production and hate his life with 10 reloads with the gun he currently has, or 10 round reloads, or be able to show up and have fun and shoot a high cap division without being at a significant disadvantage from Jump Street, right? And if you want to shoot irons, you have to shoot production, and if you want to shoot optics, you have to shoot carry optics, but you have to be careful about what gun you own and all this other bullshit. And it just should be more inclusive and just show up and shoot. Just compete and trim the fat on the divisions. There's no reason to have revolver. There's a whole international revolver federation for revolver. If those guys want to shoot revolver in USPSA, cool. Come shoot low cap, and we'll let you compete.
The idea of putting. I'm leaning more and more towards the idea of doing all the classic divisions, just throw them in one division, and that.
Yeah, exactly. Revolver. Yeah, revolver and single stack and limited 10 compete in.
So essentially, it would just be limited 10, and then you just allow all that other crap in there.
Yeah, pretty much. You could just do limited 10 and allow all that shit in there. I like that. Yeah, there you go. Boom.
So high cap optics that you keep saying, is that major scoring factor?
No. So here's the thing. Limited, as it sits, is major scoring because you have to shoot 40 cal unlimited to get major scoring. There's actually a diameter requirement in limited to get major scoring, right?
Right.
Open, major scoring, 150 power factor, right, to make it safe. All the other divisions are minor. So high cap irons and high cap optics are minor. There's there's actually no way to get major scoring.
High cap optics, do I get to trick my gun out?
100%. High cap optics and high cap irons, you get to go fucking buck wild.
I think that's a great answer because you still have to stay within similar production rules, but it allows companies to still make money in this sport and keeps possible sponsors. One of the things that we didn't talk about yet is all these companies that do all this side work to make money from us because of the rule changes that are allowed and happened. We don't want to lose those companies.
Yeah.
I think the major problem that I see in our sport is, great example, CZ Custom, Cajun Gunworks. We don't have any opportunity. We never bring those guys in, but we spend thousands of dollars with them as shooters. Why are they not a sponsor at USPSA? Why aren't we bringing them in and making it a point to try to bring those guys into our game? We bring SIG in. They're amazing. Why are they the only company that's really pushing for us? We don't bring anybody in.
And we're less than 1% of their gross sales, I guarantee it.
The difference is SIG is a huge company, and SIG is progressive in the sense that they appreciate that competition, and that if you build a company that makes products that are optimized for competition, that means you're going to be making good products in general. Every market is going to appreciate that. I agree.
It's like asking
for a company like Cajun or a company like CZ Custom, they don't have the capital to throw around, understanding that sponsoring competitive shooting is a known speculative investment that is guaranteed to be a net loser. It is not a financially profitable thing to be involved with. It is a cultural decision that they do. It's the same reason, major car companies sponsor Formula One race teams. They spend billions of dollars, lose billions of dollars doing that, but you promote a culture that, basically cares about excellence through competition. And if you're making products that are adequate for competition, other people are going to see that both in a marketing capacity and enjoy it to some degree, but mainly you're then making quality products.
There's no Lincoln Formula One team, right? Because that's not what the culture of Lincoln is about. It's luxury, right?
It's Ford, though.
Huh?
It's Ford, though.
Yeah, but potato, separate company. But is Ford in Formula One? No.
They're not. Right? They're in
they're in NASCAR and shit like that, right? But
it's still the trickle down effect. It doesn't matter if you're an IDPA or USPSA or 3-gun, right? Like someone might be huge in 3-gun that we've never fucking heard of in our lifetime, and every 3-gunner will be like, yeah, they're the shit. You know?
but we have no idea.
Exactly. So it's like, I think Tom had a good point exactly of like the trickle down effect of, you know, where car companies, especially in F1, where they invest so high in the technology, like Mason was saying with SIG, they see that trickle down effect of, you know, what the race gun boys want, you know, will trickle down into the carry FUDs, sorry to say, but like you'll see that stuff trickle down and they'll be like, this shit is great. And you're like, yeah, we've had it for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities to bring smaller companies to our sport. So if you start, I used to play professional paintball. I didn't play long, but when I played paintball and I was working my way up, when we went to a game or to a match, like a big match, these guys brought tractor trailers and opened up the side of tractor trailers. People would drop thousands of dollars every time they went. When I come to a USPSA match, I'm like, this is fucking nationals. Like, this is a joke. Like,
I was going to,
this is a joke.
Where are the people that are lining up to spend thousands of dollars?
Okay. All right. Hold on. Great example. I saw personally people going over to Infinity and go, is this gun available? I'll take it right now.
100%. That happened at Nationals. They sold a bunch of guns.
Sport. This is a rich man's sport. The problem is we don't like there are ranges that will hold that have FFLs. We don't set it up to where that FFL standing there and going, hey, man, I have these guns. Here's the deal. You can buy it right now. It's just like going to a gun show. Shit, we're at a shooting range pulling the trigger. Why aren't we selling guns? Why aren't we selling upgrades? Why aren't we selling dots? Like, SIG's a great example. Dude, I shoot a SIG trigger optic. I would love to be able to walk to a match and go, oh, the SIG tent's here. I'm going to go buy a $500-$600 dot. But nobody does it. They just go, hey, we're going to put our names on everything. There's a disconnect between sponsorship and actual shooters buying things. You're requiring the shooter to go home and look the shit up instead of just being able to grab it and take it.
Do you know why?
Right?
Do you know why?
No,
because
I don't know.
Because there's no interest from the people running the show to making those matches a spectacle. Same reason they won't live stream it properly, right? They have no interest in making it a spectator spectacle, or it should be. Here's the thing: if Mason, myself, Tom, or you go to a major match, we've been to dozens of them, hundreds of them, right? It's not anything interesting to us. But if I go to my local match and I talk some dude into going to nationals and seeing what it's like, he's going to show up. And I remember my first nationals, 2018. My first nationals was back-to-back-to-back nationals, right? 9 days of nationals, 2018. I'd only been shooting for like 2 months. I went and got my shit pushed in, right? And I was looking around going, well, this was it was cool because I got to meet people and.
Bro, it's a local match.
But it's
a bigger 21 stages.
It's a bigger local match.
I think you kind of hit on the most important difference, though, and that starts with the information. If you want to have
it's got to be marketed.
Spectacle, if you want it to be a spectator sport, it starts with democratizing the information and making it so that people are thinking about it like it's a sport. Right now, if you just look at a cross-section of just, say, the board of directors, you're going to see people that have wildly different priorities as far as whether they think it's, as Foley said, right, a sport or an event or a hobby. It's like we can't even decide that. It's like if we can't at least agree that this is a sport, right, that people are intended to be taking seriously and trying to get better at, then I don't really know. If we don't have an identity on the most basic level like that, I don't really know how we can think that we're going to promote a unified message.
Yeah,
it's a very simple thing to take a cross-section of top shooters and solicit their input for things like designing stages or shaping where high hit factors are on classifiers or putting out information about how to broadcast better about matches or any of those things. If you ask the people that are most involved, you're usually going to get a really well thought out answer about almost anything. And there's very little top-down communication in that way between the upper echelon in the sport and the administration, or really any membership in the administration.
If anyone doesn't think that bringing gear and guns and equipment and parts and dots, T-shirts, hats, go look at Mr. Brian Connolly.
Dude, yeah.
From HD Hunters HD Gold, guys. He goes to every match and he sells it. Listen, he's not going and losing money. He's making money. You know why he makes money? Because people like to buy gun shit, glasses. He not only does he make an awesome product, but he freaking talks to you about it. And he doesn't just go, "Hey man, get the F out of here. Here's the booth." You know, I mean, he just one more thing before I go, because I don't want to get too crazy about it. 2 years ago, or Carry Optics National, I think it was Carry Optics, or no, Production Nationals. I'm standing there, and I'm talking to Brian, and they had the chrono there because something happened up top where it flooded. And I'm talking to Brian, I'm like, "Bro, how's the match going?" He goes, "I've never had an area so busy. We have hundreds of people coming in here every single day." And I asked him, I said, "It's because Chrono's here, isn't it?" And he goes, "It is. They all go to Chrono. They chrono, and then they hang out for half an hour because they can't go anywhere else. They can't go to the next stage. There's nowhere to go." So what did you do? You forced everyone to go in there. So we go to I think it was Carry Optics Nationals was by itself the next one. I go, "Hey man, how's it going?" I said, "Is it as busy as it was last time?" He goes, "No, dude, it's not that busy." I go, "They took Chrono out, didn't they?" He goes, "They did." So I said to him, I said, "The next match was coming up." I said, "You should go talk to them and say you want Chrono moved over here so you can force people to come into here." Guess what didn't happen? Chrono didn't get moved. And I'm telling you, this is the problem. These guys are like, "Oh, it's too noisy." The effing warm-up bay is in the freaking same area. What the hell's the difference?
Yeah.
The real issue there was
and
just
if you
the lack
talk
of
to the vendors, they wanted them there. They didn't care about the shooting.
Yeah.
They want customers.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Garbage.
And
put the porta johns at the end of the vendor area.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, dude. That's the problem. We're looking at this. We're looking at changing divisions and doing all this shit. We don't even take care of our vendors that actually support our sport.
Yeah.
Like, we're not even thinking about, "Hey guys, let's make this an experience. When someone wins the match," okay? And I talked about this the other day on my podcast. I remember my first trophy, which I won. My first trophy was I won PCC in C class. By the time I got up on that trophy, it's garbage. By the time I got up there, they had called 3 people behind me before I even got my trophy. They don't give a shit about us. They're like, "Just shuffle along, get out of here. Who gives a shit?" Yeah. Why is it that the top 3 shooters in each division don't stand on an actual podium like the Olympics, get recognized together? Let's appreciate these guys are spending thousands of effing dollars. I get it. It's because it's a little bit slower. How about we start food as soon as we get to the damn thing? And then while we're eating, we can start the awards. We wait till everybody sits around for 2 effing hours, and then we start the awards.
And then you got to wait for something cool to happen, like Mason Lane doing a Chalice chug.
Yeah, screw his bag in the trophy, baby.
He had to make it. He had to make it interesting, right? And people are Matt's saying that that won't work because the products would have to be discounted. Nobody's going to buy it if they can find it cheaper. That's not true. People buy out of convenience. If the product's there and they can get it, they don't. Here's me, everyone I know. They don't give a fuck if they pay $5 more online. If they can leave with it in their hand,
and get it,
they're going to get it. They're going to get it, period. Mark 7
totally
was there.
Like,
you're not getting Mark 7s any cheaper at Nationals, but guess what? I guarantee you they sold a fuck ton of them, right? You're not getting Infinities any cheaper while you're there, but guess what? You're selling a fuck ton of them. Grizzly Ears, you're not getting them any cheaper there, right? But guess what? He sells a fuck ton of them. Brian's the only guy that goes, "Hey, I'll give you a discount if you buy them here. If you buy them sitting right here. But if you order a pair, it's going to be different. But if you buy these, right, that are sitting right here, they're cheaper." Right? But people are going to buy it out of convenience. It will happen. But here's the thing is it takes the leap of faith. It takes USPSA doing planning and going, "Hey, this year we're going to make it special." Reach out to vendors. "Hey, this is what we're thinking." Market it. All the local radios. If you know Nationals is going to be in Frostproof, then or frostproof is shitty. It's far away from there. But if you know it's going to be in Colorado, right? Or you know it's going to be in Alabama, go all the local radio stations, pay the couple $100 it takes to advertise it, right? Go in your local, have all your shooters advertise it. People will show up. Hey, make it a spectator sport. Shoot off at the end, right? Spectators allowed to watch. Do demos.
If there's one thing I've learned is that grandstand rental is a lot cheaper than people expect.
Way cheaper. And then you got Stoker can roll out the ammo bus. And here's the thing. Here's the beautiful part, right? If we do mostly minor scoring, right? With most of the divisions,
you bring one ammo.
You're bringing one ammo. You can bring Simple. Mike Stoker in, and he can sell 2 fucking million rounds at the. Hey, guess what? We're gonna have ammo on sale here, obtainable for not a crazy amount of money. Don't worry about shipping ammo. Don't worry about flying with it. It's match ammo. It makes minimum power factor. Show up, buy the ammo. This is how much it's gonna cost, dude. If I could show up to a match and buy 9 major, that's match ammo. You bet your sweet fucking ass I would. I wouldn't even.
Especially today, bro.
Oh, my God.
The shipping.
Bro, in a heartbeat.
The shipping costs right now are insane, dude. You can get it there, already shipped. And then you don't have to worry about it not showing up.
Yeah, it's there.
Right?
It's fucking there.
All you do is show up with your gun and blast away, right? I mean, that's it.
I was gonna say, I did Ben Stoker's summit last year where I met Mason for the first time. And a guy flew out from Cali, and I think he shipped I think the year before they shot 5,000 rounds or something insane, right? And he literally was like, I shipped 150 pounds of 9mm. I don't want to fly back with it. I have no way to ship it back. Will you buy it? And he's like, I'll give it to you for 9 cents a round. And I literally looked at him and I said, what's your Venmo?
Dude, I want to. Dude, I want to
blow my gun up, and I'd be fine with it. I'd be like, I'll buy another one for what I saved.
I just paid,
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I won a bunch of Ely ammo at a bunch of matches this year, right? 38 Super Comp does me no good. I don't shoot 38 Super Comp, right? But guess what? Right there, I sell that ammo no problem, right? So to people who are driving and not flying like myself. But here's the thing, right? You lower. This is where going to lowering power factor matters, right? Because currently not all divisions can buy match ammo because there are 9mm major shooters who can't buy match ammo because there's no one but Atlanta Arms and making 9 major. That's it, Atlanta Arms and a few other boutique companies, right? And most of it's shit and it's still dangerous, right? If you lower it to 150, Mike can pull up his bus and go, hey, here's 9mm minor, here's plus P, makes major, here's 40 cal, and everyone's covered. You want to shoot 45? Great. Hey, here's 45. And boom, you can get any flavor, how you want it, match ammo, safe, reasonable price. And guess what? Him as a vendor makes money, right? Federal is the biggest match sponsor. How much Federal ammo do they really sell at these matches? Probably not that much, right? Because
I want to add to what you just said about Federal because I wanted to bring this up before I get out of here, and I'm going to get off here, dude. I got to go to work tomorrow. So why is it that the majority of us reload and we can't get primers instead of ammo from Federal as a USPSA shooter? Why does USPSA not have some kind of a deal to help us get primers as shooters? We are the sport. If we aren't able to reload, I'm out. I can't pay $100 for primers, but it's not even the money at this point. Now you can't get the shit. And when you do get the shit, it's not $100. It's $120 or $130 because they'll only sell you 1,000. Then you got to pay hazmat and shipping. The Federal owns all the primer business right now. That company has bought everyone. So the Winchester, CCIs, Federal, they're all owned by one entity. So how is it that we can't get together with our 2 biggest sponsors are who? SIG and Federal. So the best you can give me is 150 grain bullet for minor. What do the rest of us do?
I think you're way overestimating how much USPSA means to Federal.
Yeah, USPSA doesn't mean that much.
To trash their efforts because they've stepped up more than almost any other company as far as providing a product that's somewhat optimized for what we do, but
Okay.
the
So
entirety
this
of
isn't
the
against.
USPSA account means nothing to them compared
So
to
this,
everything else.
and I want to clarify this because it's not against federal. I mean, what I'm saying is, why hasn't USPSA Brass said, "Hey, listen, guys, we got a ton of shooters that aren't even shooting anymore. We're losing people at matches left and right because they can't get the materials." So to keep the sport alive, make that conversation happen instead of, "Hey, we'll just throw you some 150 grain bullets."
So
There are guys that can't shoot that shit.
So Mike has a good point. Federal is owned by Vista Outdoors. Vista Outdoors is the parent company, right? Federal we have a deal
Okay,
with, right?
yep.
But Federal at
Right.
the end of the day doesn't make the decisions. Vista Outdoors makes the decisions. So that
point.
again goes to, that will require USPSA Brass to approach Vista Outdoors and say, "Hey, can we get a deal
Yes.
for our shooters if they buy it through through your website and use code USPSA and have an active USPSA membership? Can they get primers, not even at a discount, but in bulk?" Right?
Yes. And here's another thing. You want to drive up USPSA membership because they love their $2 for each match.
Yeah.
You have to have a USPSA membership. You have to be active in USPSA, as in you have to have an active membership. People will start becoming USPSA members that don't even shoot USPSA just to get their hands on some primers.
They would sell millions of primers, right? But here's the reality, and Mike's right. We're 1% of Federal's income. You know what I mean?
Less than that, man.
Yeah.
We're such a niche thing
Yeah.
that you're gonna make. I'll be honest, you're gonna make way more money off some dude that freaks out over any political climate if you're left or right, going, "Hey, I can make $50 for 50 rounds of 9mm. Where do you think that money's gonna go?" Federal's gonna go, "I'm gonna go put that into actual rounds than selling it as bulk."
Yeah.
If you want to see significant progress in the front ammo availability through the sport, it's going to have to you don't see Oakley throwing glasses at USPSA. You know why?
Right.
Because we're a hair of their sales, right?
It's going to have to.
Brian throwing money at the sport, not because it's probably profitable, because it's a passion project for him.
It's going to have to be.
They're going to get someone involved with freeing up ammo for USPSA shooters. It's going to be someone like Mike. It's going to be
someone like Supervel
or someone like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's going to be a small boutique company that does it because they care about it, not because it's profitable.
It's going to take
is not profitable.
It's going to take a Supervel, and Mike's already done a lot of that, the bring your own primer event when ammo companies couldn't get primers, right? And people couldn't get components. Mike said, "Hey, I have the components. If you've got the primers, send them to me. I'll load your fucking ammo," right? Yeah. It takes a company like that who has a president who is a shooter, who cares, who say, "Hey, I'm not worried about making all the money off USPSA because I have all these federal contracts and LA contracts and online sales and whatever, but here's how I can help," right? That's what it would take. But in reality,
what makes us such a niche market is we don't do anything to get out of that market.
It would have to be
right.
First of all, it would require more ranges. It would require more matches that can then support more members.
Yeah, it would take
huge
massive growth.
Okay, so how do you grow ranges? How do you grow more membership? You have to help the ranges. A great example. We started a club. And our first original investment was $9,000. Our range covered that for us, and they got the money back, right? We knew we'd get it real quick because we threw the matches, right? We threw one match a month, plus we did a Wednesday night match. So we got 2 matches, and we were banging them out, right? Every week we had a Wednesday night match. So that adds up real quick to pay it off. But no one helped us do that. Without that range's support and the owners being USPSA friendly, how do we make that happen? Right? So how do we get out of that market? We have to start growing, and we have to start. A great example is, and dude, I'll bang on this guy until the day I die. I am so sick and tired of our bullshit. USPSA Instagram page is a joke.
It's garbage.
It's a joke.
It's absolute.
We have a bullshit USPSA Instagram page. We don't have a YouTube page that I'd watch. We don't have a Facebook page that I pay attention to. And I do this. I love this game. I coach this sport. Dude, I live and breathe this shit. The fact that I turn on USPSA Instagram page and I instantly, dude, we talked about it. I instantly like garbage. When I see a dude in a tactical vest and a helmet, I'm fucking out. Like, seriously, what the shit? Okay, it's a Walther commercial. Great. How about some USB? Dude, we got Wansik Kim. We have all these guys that are phenomenal shooters. Why aren't they the ones that are on those videos?
Because
I don't understand where we're at, dude. It's like these people don't know marketing, but they're our marketing directors. What?
And making a lot of money.
I don't think
I just don't get it.
Honestly, I don't think what we need is to just inject more members into the sport, because I think most likely if you just look at a cross section of the average club, if you have 100 people, or if you have some number of people, probably 5 to 10%, if you're lucky, are going to be involved in even showing up to set up a stage morning of. Honestly,
yes, I know.
Regionally dependent,
less than that,
but that means like the neighborhood of 0.25% are probably going to be willing to be invested enough to show up and be a match director, and probably 1% of that 0.25% is going to be in a position of that level of passion and have the startup money. If you're lucky, it's 10 grand and you already own the land and you like USPSA. But if not, you're looking for an area that has enough people that you can even support a club that is gun friendly enough that its population would be interested in shooting, and then has property costs that you could build a range for, which realistically is more like, $500,000. So there's a lot of limitations between us in doing that. I think if we streamline and functionalize the sport we have, we can make the product better for everyone who's already here for sure. But I don't think the answer is like what's between us and Coke sponsorships is not like, it's not like a year or two in fixing the Instagram. It's a lot more than that. There's really
but hold on.
What's your turnover rate?
The turnover rate is pretty substantial. Somebody
right,
said it
and
the
that's
other
the
day.
problem.
But here's the thing, right? I see where you're coming from, but what drives those things faster than a massive influx of people? What causes more people to get involved? What causes more ranges to be interested? What causes more sponsorships to be available? What causes better money? How do we get money?
And
more
new
people?
shooters are money.
Yeah, so I think honestly, listen, if you took 200,000 people and injected them into the sport tomorrow, guess what? Within a year, everything we want fixed would be fucking fixed. You know why? Because they would be interested in keeping those dollars.
No, I think if you inject 200,000 people into the sport in a year, you'd have 35,000 instead of 30,000. That's what would happen. Because they'd show up once, they'd be waiting for a 25-person squad.
Well,
that's what would happen. You'd get some clubs, obviously. If you get that many people, statistically, you're going to find people that have land.
I think you'd be at 75,000 by the end of it all said and done. You can't go backwards when you inject that much people, right?
Well, here's the other thing. You're going to start seeing that. You're going to start seeing a couple different things when you add that many people. Two things. You're going to see people are now they're going to remember when the sign up is, so they make sure they get in. It drives interest, right? We talk about how, all these people that are going into carry optics, that it's kind of dulling it down. It's not. It's driving the competition. Carry optics last year, Nationals, was phenomenal. Like, there was so many bangers in that game. If you screwed up one stage, you weren't winning, right? We don't have that in any other division, right? You go into production, all right, for the same three guys are going to win it, right? Carry Optics brought all the great shooters from production, all the great shooters from limited, and they brought them all together and said, all right, I'm going to shoot this match together.
They brought open shooters, right? Everybody.
Yeah, then it was open by itself. Everyone's like, I'm going to shoot open.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
If you give 5 years from now, the people that are winning Nationals in 5 years are going to be people that are already on super squads or close right now, most likely.
And that's okay, because those are the most committed. But the committed guys like us aren't the ones we're worried about. We're trying to keep the C and B class and the A class guys that actually keep the sport rolling. But here's the other thing that he didn't talk about earlier. If you inject 200,000 people into this sport from just getting them to know what it is, guess what every single one of those guys is going to do? Buy a gun. I don't give a shit if they buy a gun and leave. They're still buying product. They're still coming in, buying new glasses, buying rigs, buying holsters, buying guns, and buying dots, and then they go, I'm just going to do this for fun. And then guess what happens? Another 200,000 people roll through, and another 200,000. But I didn't even know what this sport was. 4 years ago. No one talks about
Me
it.
either.
I've gone. Nobody talks about it.
I'll tell you how
It's-
I'll tell you how I found this sport. I thought we were going to an IDPA match because my buddy said he wanted to go try IDPA.
Right. That's sad because it's sad because USPSA is a young man's game 90% of the time. So if a young, and listen, I'll tell you a great example. Tennessee, I've been to Tennessee many times. I've met a lot of great guys there I shoot with. I talk to almost every day. And I'm like, hey, what's your guys' match? Oh, IDPA. Hey, we got one match a month over here for USPSA. What? Yeah, everybody loves IDPA because no one pushed USPSA ever, right? It's an IDPA area. And then all of a sudden you see all the same guys going to USPSA match because no one grows it from there. It's like, oh no, that's the IDPA club. What? What? Okay. Why? Why isn't that an IDPA/USPSA club?
Well, here's the
We
thing.
do a lot of fighting with other things instead of working together.
Here's the thing.
Right?
In my area in Houston, right, within a 2-hour drive, I could shoot 9 local matches a month. But guess what? Every single place I show up, there's 25 to 30 people. So you're telling me if we added a couple hundred shooters, they couldn't find a place to shoot? There's plenty of infrastructure, not enough shooters. You need to advertise it as a sport. The board needs to understand it needs to be driven like a sport. Hire a CEO, find a way to do it, get better sponsors, market the fucking
You guys are all
piss out of
thinking
it.
about this from the perspective of someone who's already has the demeanor and the financial position and the interest in firearms to want to be involved with it on a high level. Everyone has the same story who's already involved. It's, I saw one match. I saw one guy shoot one stage. I'm like, I want to do that. I can tell you, I talk about my wife as a farrier. I'm involved, surrounded by people all the time who are Second Amendment amicable. I tell people about it every day. I've had one client of hers show up and want to take a lesson with me to learn how to shoot her M&P shield a little bit better. That was the extent of the traction I got out of those people.
No, yeah, because it's just
That's
you
true,
talking to people local. But
Yeah.
if you're marketing on Instagram and marketing on YouTube, it's going to find the people who would do it.
If you really want to penetrate new markets, like going after other sports is the people to go after. You go after, like, you try to penetrate the IDPA market, you try to penetrate like the 3-gun market, like those are the people that you already know are interested in shooting that want to spend money on it and most likely already have a range in their area.
Guess what 3-gun guys shoot? 9mm minor with a slide ride dot 2011. How the fuck do we get those guys? How about we allow it in a division without a significant disavantage?
Dude, I gotta tell you, I think Mason nailed it.
He did.
He just
did
hit it
nail
out of
it. You
the
have to
park.
steal it from other people. But
No. Mason nailed it out of the park, bro. We look at this sport completely different. We have a passion for this sport that your average shooter will never see.
It's true.
Like, a great example is I gave a lesson today to a guy who he shot a little bit of 3-gun. And he came out and he shot, and we did this lesson. We did a full day class, and I pushed him, and I pushed him, and I pushed him, and he crushed it. And the first thing out of his mouth, because I pushed him, but again, I had my hands on him, right? I was able to coach him. He's like, when's the next match? That guy hasn't shot a match in almost 2 years. Why? Nothing drove him to it, right? So again, he had that personality that I had. He seeked me out for a class because of my videos, right? But again, your average person isn't going to watch one of our videos of a guy in a tactical helmet and a vest on our USPSA page and go, hell yeah, I'm going to go do that. You see what I'm saying? We're not giving anyone a reason to be passionate about a new sport, which is what we have. They're not passionate about it, but we're passionate about it. And if you put us, Mason, I guarantee you, if I put your ass on an Instagram page and I said, Mason, give me an interview right now about why you love this sport. Then I take that video and I have you talking over it and you crushing a stage, JJ, any good shooter, and you watch them crush it, all of a sudden you're like, dude, I want to try that. I've never been able to draw out of my holster at a range. Now I want to go try that. Shooting at paper after you move and shoot at a standing range sucks. You never want to go back. But we never force people to leave that range. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do.
We never
I
force
agree.
them to come to our
I think,
sport.
I think the top-down communication is pretty lacking. And I think if you want to just say, if you take anyone that's been on a super squad in the last 3 years and you bring them into your personal circle of confidants and, source new information from them, you're going to have access to a pool of people that is more switched on than pretty much anyone else in the sport. And those are the sorts of people, at least all of us would agree, that you want to be trying to source ideas from and try to make the sport optimized for them, because those are the folks that have the, you know, the most well-informed opinion of how to make the sport more fair, how to make it better, how to optimize it for competition. And if you do that, I mean, the marketing is no exception. If you use those sorts of people to generate content in a more hands-on way, or you make them feel like they're actually heard, right, then that would be a good thing. Let's take a perfect example. You look at someone like Ben, right? He kind of has shaped the industry as far as, you know, practical shooting in general, not just USPSA goes, as far as instruction goes. When's the last time USPSA, you know, reached out to Ben to use any of his instructional content to help promote, you know, what we do in practical shooting? I could think of 17 different drills that Ben teaches that are super easy to understand, really robust. You could take anyone that owns a Derringer and teach them how to do the drill, and that would help them get interested in practical shooting. But there's no incentive or real.
Well, that's because you guys are considered elitist.
Yeah,
and that's the problem. You're not looked at as the GMs in this sport are not looked at as a value.
No.
We are looked at as if we have our noses stuck up in the air instead of we're what everybody tries to be, right? Like if you're a grandmaster, it's because you wanted to be one. You didn't start off as a grandmaster, right? You strived to be that way. Every shooter beneath us in levels is striving to be what we are. So why not take our value? Why not? I've said this, I don't know how many times, like, you have so many great shooters. Christian Seiler's a great example. I've never seen him on Instagram on USPSA. He's a 3-time national champion. Mason, I've never seen one of your videos on USPSA page, and you're a 2-time
limited national champion as not on the USPSA Instagram or Facebook.
So here's the problem.
Any of the champions, really.
Yeah. So here's the problem. We have someone who runs Instagram who only puts their friends on there. Full Metal Jesse, I love you, but you have the most posts I've ever seen in my life on USPSA. I love her. She's awesome. But the fact that they share the same shit, the same group, a lot.
I think they want to make it seem like the sport is accessible by showing not just the people at top.
And that's fine.
I think they would do them a lot more justice to show, you know,
I
understand
the
desire. I understand why they don't want to show just people at the top, because it does make it seem like it's more exclusive. But if you can join that with formal instruction or actual professional commentary, you could make it a lot more accessible. And that would be good no matter what sort of content you're choosing to put out there, really. And nothing for nothing, I understand why the institution feels like they're not appreciated by the top of the sport. I mean, we do more bitching than anyone else. But
well, if they
listen, why? We have to.
If you're making a living in this sport, it's because you made it happen. It's not because the sport is doing anything to help you do it. That's for sure.
Right.
Listen, nobody watches golf or follows golf or gets into golf because PGA posted Joe Blow on their Instagram shanking into the fucking trees, okay? They watch it to see Tiger Woods hit a fucking 185-yard 8-iron out of the rough 1 inch from the pin. You know what I mean? They don't decide to go play basketball because the NBA posted Joe Blow on the street missing a fucking jump shot, right? They posted to see LeBron James fucking postering up some dude like an animal, right? It doesn't matter. Listen, when I scroll through Instagram, if I know you and I want to see you succeed, I watch your videos if you're not that great, right? But if not, I am going to just fucking see your name, double tap, and keep going, right? If Mason posts a video of a stage, I am going to dissect that stage for a hot 5 minutes to see what he's doing. And I'm going to look at it and appreciate it. But if Joe Blow posts his fucking C-class run, no offense to those people, right? They're great. And if I know you and I want to see you get better, I'm going to follow that, right? But if I don't know you and I'm just following you for some reason, I'm just going to go boop, boop, and keep going, right? If USPSA posts anything, I'm just going to go huh, and keep scrolling because I know it's going to be shit, right? I mean,
I was gonna say, like, the biggest reason I got into this sport as a whole was I bought a Glock 19, and as I was scrolling Instagram, I saw Shane Coley pop up, and I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, whatever he's doing, I'm interested in that. And then he ripped it up, and I started following a handful of people, and I was like, all right, what's the cheapest way to get into a shooting sport? IDPA, right? I was making like 20 grand a year at the time. I can afford a holster and a mag carrier at the time. I got into it, and I'll be honest, like, I'm not the greatest shooter in the world. Thankfully, Mason's been the one going, you're stupid, do this. But like, that's absolutely the great way to put it, was like, you see the top tier and you're like, you can do that at that level.
People want to do something to try to strive for the greatness, right?
So one of the comments in here, I scrolled up. I think it was Kimmy something. I'm sorry, I didn't read. I couldn't read the whole thing. This thing sucks to read. But Kimmy mentioned something about, you don't know what's good. You don't know what's bad in USPSA unless you shoot it. So putting someone like Mason on there crushing it, they're going to go, oh, cool. They're not going to go, oh, that guy's way too good. I can't do that. They don't know.
No.
I mean, Mason could be the worst effing shooter in the world. They don't know that. Until you get into the sport, you don't know what's good and bad. So this whole thing where we don't want to discourage people is an excuse to not put any effort in, period. That's all it is. It's an excuse, right? It's just like going out there and practicing and go, oh, shit, I shot a mic. I'm going home. I sucked. That's bullshit. You put in more work so you can explain the sport. Maybe instead of these bullshit posts that we have, put some explanation on them. Right? Like Mason said it. Dude, talk over the video and talk about what it is. Hey guys, get out of that standing and shooting, right? Get out of standing and shooting. Come out to USPSA, try to draw from a holster. Find your local club at practicescore.com or uspsa.com. You can drive the sport, but we do zero communication. The tactical world is where all our shooters are, guys.
Not only that,
okay?
This Johnny Tormenta came out with he just perfect comment, right? USPSA is cool because it's a sport, and I think it's probably one of the only sports where you can go shoot against the pros on the same course and see where you stand. There's not many sports like it. 100%. Name another sport where you can go and do it against the top pros and find out where you sit, right? You can't do that with almost any other sport that I know of. Like, you're not going to get to go play TPC Saltgrass with the fucking PGA Tour guys. You're not going to be able to go fucking to Minute Maid and just sit on a baseball diamond with the Astros. You're not going to be able to go to LA and try to dunk with LeBron. It's just not going to happen, right?
Well,
you can do that with this sport, and if you market it properly, you can do it. Bowling, you're telling me you can just show up and bowl with all the pros? I don't know.
Fishing is a better example. Hopkins just said fishing, and the difference between USPSA and a lake is that a lake is really big.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost
if you pull up
of
next to
people
a
in
pro
small boats
fisherman,
on a
if
lake,
you
can't
pull
fit an
your boat
infinite
up,
number of people in a match. And the only reason it's still like that now is because the matches are still relatively small. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be like that, right? Like, I actually agree that's one of the cooler things about the sport, but that's one of the other reasons we're able to do that. Foley, back in the day, during his tenure, actually said something that was smart, even though he immediately disregarded his own words. He said, USPSA does not lend itself well to casual participation, right? And his actions didn't necessarily reflect that. He sort of steered the ship more towards making money, more so than optimizing the sport.
So
but he's right.
Let me ask you a question.
Like, generally speaking, if someone's going to get into USPSA, you're already, like, just look at an IDPA shooter. An IDPA shooter is infinitely more serious about getting better and participating at shooting with their gun than the average gun owner. And a USPSA involvement is like another whole order of magnitude of a bigger commitment than that, even to participate on a smaller level, just based on the gear that's involved and how much more technical skill is necessary to not embarrass yourself doing it, right? So I think the will is there. The average membership, even on the lowest level of involvement, takes shooting seriously in a way that you can get them on the same sheet of music, right?
So I want to go back to one of the points you made in that about nationals can only be so big or matches can only be so big. How many shooters are at World Shoots?
Well, that's not a good example. There's a lot, but it's because they do a 5-day match or a 6-day match.
Okay. No, that's okay. All right. So I'm asking because what is the ultimate number that we have to stop at for an average? What do we do nationals in 3 days? So technically 3 days. So 5 days is world shoot is 5 days of all shooting, not including before you get there and after you leave, right? You're talking 5 days of actual shooting. So if we did 5 days of shooting, what's the difference in what we do now with all these crazy amounts of nationals? Like where we're having not 9 days, but what are we talking about for nationals this year for Colorado? Is that 7 days?
I don't know, dude. Honestly.
So if let's just say we're doing 6 days at nationals this year in Colorado. If we don't have a bunch of all these effing divisions that we have to deal with, and we talked about shrinking the divisions like open, carry optics, high cap, what we talked about throughout 5 hours ago, however long I've been on here. When you start shrinking it down, all of a sudden that 5 days doesn't sound as bad because we don't have 5 days of 40 different divisions that have to shoot, right? Everyone's just shooting that match for however many we need. This is how you grow a sport because you're able to you make nationals what it is. It's nationals. Like this is the only sport I've ever been involved in that I hear people like, yeah, I'm going to nationals. I'm like, it's fucking nationals. You're supposed to be excited about going to nationals.
My first one, I was like, holy shit, I'm going to nationals. And then my second one, I'm like, babe, I'm going to nationals. Bye.
Yes, dude, it's like the area matches. USPSA is not in charge of area matches, but I'm telling you, if you don't pay attention you don't even know what the hell area matches are. I mean, I don't understand why we don't support the guys that bust their ass in the sport, right? To put on an area match is a shit ton of work. To put on a level 2 is a shit ton of work. We don't do any. USPSA does zero promotion of those local matches.
It does zero promotion, period. USPSA is the worst marketing platform of a sport I've ever seen.
Well, I
should be able to call you.
Huh?
Say that again.
I don't think area matches are having any problem filling up.
No, they're not. But you know what the problem is? We're not bringing new shooters to area matches to come watch them. Okay. Right? We're not making them a big deal. We have, great example. COVID crushed us in this sport, right? We lost a lot of things. But the fact that now we're mailing trophies, even when we have award ceremonies back, what the fuck?
Mailing them 4 months after the fact.
Thank you. I don't even know if I won one, and I actually went up and shook someone's hand. So I'm assuming I'm not getting it because I haven't seen it yet. But I'm like, when I saw guys getting trophies, I was like, oh, they're still sending those? Again, we had an award ceremony, but we didn't have any awards. I'm not sure what happened there. You can't give me this COVID shit anymore, right? I'm assuming we're getting past this by now. Let's start having award ceremonies, appreciating people. Let's start having, I don't know. I guess I quit. Whatever. I'm just going to go shoot.
If you want to see how a match should be ran, go to Dragons Cup 2.0.
Yeah, bro. Oh, here's the problem with Dragons Cup. Everyone's going. I can't get in.
I can get you in, bro.
Yeah, but how do we make sure matches like Dragons Cup, why is Dragons Cup better than Nationals?
Dragons Cup is better than Nationals because the stages are fantastic. The people running it are going to run it right. The ROs are quality. The fucking match, the whole match is quality. There's food there. There's vendor areas. There's restrooms in buildings. There's an entire building.
That doesn't bother me, dude. Because
and it's a spectacle.
But I'm saying there's some of the stuff. Right. I think some of the problem is the stuff that some of us bitch about, me included, probably aren't that big of a deal to your average shooter, right? Like, we talked about this before. We talked about this on our podcast, dude, we had the other day. If someone shit in a box and handed it to me as a trophy, I'm going for nationals. I'm not going for a trophy.
Exactly.
Right? It didn't matter to me. So some of the stuff that we complain about would grow the sport. It's not necessarily for us, right? And I think that's part of the problem. When we say things like Mason complains, Stoger complains, they're not complaints. They're like, hey, man, this is why people are upset. We're listening to the shooters. You guys aren't. Like, Mason's a good example. he sits down at every class with 10 to 12 guys, right? You think those guys don't talk about USPSA? You think Mason just goes up and goes, all right, guys, shoot some 6 targets and let's go sit down and talk, not talk? We're all communicating with everyone. We're the voices that are hearing this stuff, right? They come to people like me. They come to Mason. They come to the GMs, and they go, hey, man, do you think they're ever going to change major power factor? You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just not hearing what we're saying. So we're kind of taking those voices and being the loudmouth, right? But they're not listening. They're not hearing what we're saying because we're elitists. We're being dicks. You know, people complained about the porta potty. I didn't care, but really, we didn't think that one out.
A lot of
so
people
it was a
did.
mistake, right? No big deal.
Care. You don't care because you're a hardcore shooter, right? Like, I didn't really care because I'm a hardcore shooter. I'm going to walk over to my truck, open the door, and take a piss.
Well, you didn't care because you had other business.
Yeah, I had other things going on. but here's the thing, right? Most people do care. And like, I don't care about trophies. I'm not in this to win trophies. I'm in this to win, right? If you give me a plaque that says I won, whoop-de-doo, it's going to go in a box, right? In my head, I want to fucking win, right? I want to prove that I am the best person that walked on that range, bar none, period. I'm going to die with those memories, right? I watched a high-level GM win a trophy at Nationals finally and throw that fucking trophy in the lake when we got back to the Airbnb because he does not care about trophies, right? Those type of people don't matter. It's the C class, B class, A class, D class guys that do care. This is their vacation. This is their getaway. They worked hard and they won. They won a cool trophy. And when you get this little bullshit plaque, that matters to people. When they show up and there's no big event, that matters to people. That's why I say go to Dragon's Cup, because there's going to be badass trophies, hand-forged dragons, metal fucking dragons and shit. Like, what are we talking about? There's going to be food. There's going to be vendors. There's going to be it's a big deal. Like, there's going to be news stations there. There's people covering it. It's a big fucking deal. That's why I say go. If you want to see how USPSA should be running a fucking match, go to that match. And you know why it's going to be so good? Because it has nothing to – USPSA has no planning. They're not financially supporting it in any way. One person is financially supporting it because they love the fucking organization and they want to see a good match and they want to see it change. So that's why it is what it is. There's a multi-millionaire who decided, fuck USPSA, I want to make a good match, and that's how it happened. But until USPSA looks at that and says, why is this guy doing something so much better? Why do people love it? Then it's not going to fucking matter.
I think that's actually probably one of the most salient points you've made in favor of your suggestion for doing the single action rules modifications. Is if you can rope in, if you find ways to rope in people like that dude, right, that are independently wealthy and want to put on their own matches, like those are the sorts of people that can make a really serious impact.
And those are the sort of people
guy that
owns
buy the Archangel Michael range. You look at the guys that run the Extreme Group matches, right? Like those guys, they make a business around putting on matches, and they're able to put on some of the best matches in the world because we're not reliant on the red tape of any other organization to make it happen.
And those guys are the super wealthy dudes that bought a couple Glocks and liked it, and then bought a couple CZs and liked it, and then decided what's the next step. They bought a custom 2011, and then, hey, where can I go shoot this? And that custom 2011 is now viable in a sport and can be competitive. And that guy gets involved, falls in love. We get 2 or 3 of those a fucking year. Great, awesome.
What do you recommend? What do you recommend for a really good 2011?
What do I recommend for a really good 2011? One that goes bang.
A SIG 320.
You're an idiot. You're an idiot. What do you recommend for a 2011, bro? What's the best 2011?
Oh, a 9mm slide ride, non-compensated 2011.
He's looking for you to plug your sponsors, dude. Jesus.
Oh my God!
No, I'm keeping that out.
What's the best 2011 to buy?
I'm not talking about it because it's not. There's multiple. Listen, I'm not going to shill a product. Atlas is great, but Infinity builds a good gun, right?
So
fucking.
I'm not going to shill a product.
So
Atlas is great.
Yeah,
you're so bad at this.
No, like here's the thing.
Oh my God, you're so bad at this.
This platform. No, listen. Hey, look at me. This platform is not for shilling my companies that I represent.
It's not shilling. I was cracking a joke, but your answer should always be Atlas is the best. Hey, Mason, what's the best carry optics gun?
SIG 320.
Canic.
What is it?
The Canic.
320.
The Canic.
Yes, thank you very much. That is a sponsored shooter right there.
No,
Best
everyone
open gun,
knows.
the SIG P320.
Here's the thing.
Actually, right now it's a Beretta.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing. Yeah, the best carry cut is a Beretta. But here's the thing, right? When I decided to do this platform, I wanted it to be genuine, and I don't want to push a product that I don't want to falsely push a product. Listen, if you want a great 2011, there's like 3 or 4 really good manufacturers that make them, right? There's 3 or 4 really good ones. If you want a good carry optics gun,
you see
there's
this?
4 really good
This
ones.
is your contract right now. They're putting your contract in the garbage can right now. You're a shit sponsored shooter.
No.
They're like, oh man, we love Tom Castro. He makes Bangin Brass actually talk about us, but that son of a bitch drops the ball 2 podcasts in a row. You suck, bro.
No, because here's the thing, right? If I go saying Atlas is the best, right? I piss off a bunch of people. I make a couple of people happy, right? Atlas knows.
Oh my god!
Everyone knows.
You're a
Everyone
trip.
knows I love Atlas. I shoot Atlas. I push Atlas everywhere. But the podcast isn't the place for that. I don't push any of my
Oh,
sponsors
you're
on
a
the
trip,
podcast.
dude. You're good. I just was messing with you because I got
Except
you
for
on the
Pro
last one.
Shop Products, because Pro Shop Products sponsors the podcast. And if you want the best cleaning solution, Pro Shop Products is the American-made, family-owned, operated product.
We just lost half our viewers because you just started chilling something.
Thanks a lot, Tom. You fuck.
All right, shit. All right, man. I'm gonna get off here. It was a good talking.
Oh yeah, you
that's a
gotta
good idea
go to
for all
work.
of us.
Yeah,
See you, boys.
I think we close to wrapping this thing up.
The guy that asked the hypothetical from earlier just asked me if this is one of those charity telethons.
It is really long.
All right, I'm out of here.
All right, later,
Guys.
buddy. I think we covered everything. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
All right, man. I'm out too. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for coming on. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everything. I appreciate it. You guys make this possible. And if you've made it this far, I cannot believe it. You're a psychopath. But I hope we all had fun. I know I did. And this will be out. If you're watching this live, this is coming out tomorrow, but it's going to come out on Tuesday. So thank you again for everyone. I appreciate it. I hope we didn't disappoint. I'll see you on the range.